urging ministers to reverse what she calls 20 years of neglect. The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge have visited a village destroyed by flooding in 2015 during their tour of Pakistan. Prince William and Kate watched an emergency response drill and included demonstrations of how members of the community carry casualties over a river. A group of celebrities have called themselves hypocrites for backing climate change protesters' Extinction Rebellion. The stars, including Jude Law, Mel B and Tom York, signed an open letter saying they live high-carbon lives, but that they also want to change. That's the latest. I'm Will Rowe.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker.
This is the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive.
Good afternoon, it's the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive. You're with me, Johnny Burrow, Guy Watts, and our special guest today, Martin Allen, former West Ham midfielder, former Brentford and Barnet boss. Your top stories this afternoon. David De Gea has given Ole Gunnar Solskjaer yet another injury worry ahead of Manchester United's crucial Premier League game against Liverpool on Sunday. And sport and politics are mixing in Spain. Next weekend's El Clasico could be moved from the Nou Camp to the Bernabeu, with pro-independence protests planned in Catalonia. Feisty stuff that we're going to be coming on to later in the show, Martin. But your worst nightmare as a manager, surely, is when a player's going off on international break. All you really want is them all to come back fit, firing, ready to play for their club sides again. For Ole, to be told that one of his most highly paid players, club captain, key goalkeeper, has come back with a hamstring problem, how frustrating is that?
Oh, Johnny, brings back bad memories, mate. Bad memories. I was lucky enough to be the manager at Brentford Football Club, and we picked up a centre forward called Lloyd Owusu. And for that year, Lloyd was on fire. We were up in the promotion places. What was there, about 10, 12 games to go, something like that. And completely out the blue, I got a letter through from the club secretary that Lloyd had been called up for a friendly to play for Ghana. Somewhere in Africa, some random place in the middle of nowhere. So I had to call Lloydie into my office and said, Lloydie, do you want to play for Ghana or... He said, Gaffer, he said, I'd love to go to Ghana. He said, I'd never thought I'd be a full international. And I said, well, nor did I, mate. You're not that good. Anyway.
You say that to him?
Yeah, of course I did. He couldn't play for Ghana. Crikey. Anyway, bottom line, whenever the lads went away on international duty, and we did have a few at that time at Brentford, believe it or not, they always had to ring me or send me a text after the game. Send me a private text at home, because I'd be laying on the settee trying to flick around to find that everyone's okay. And then 11 o'clock at night, I got a call from Lloyd Owusu. He's torn his groin.
And the thing about that, when the phone rings, it's not going to be good news, is it, at 11 o'clock?
No. What's up, Lloyd? I didn't have another centre forward, by the way. I had DJ Campbell, that was it. And no, he'd been sold. DJ Campbell had been sold to Birmingham, so I was left with no one. And he said, I've torn my groin. I'm in agony. He said, this is bad news. I thought, oh my God. All my plans for the Thursday and Friday training, for the game on Saturday, have gone out the window. Get plans for training. I had to ask Marcus Gale, who was older than me, if he could play up front. Anyway, we went from being in the promotion places, we went into the playoffs, and we missed out on promotion. And that is how big it is to all these managers. You see all these interviews the managers are doing the last couple of days for the Premier League, getting ready for the weekend. But underneath it, they'll be looking and waiting for the reports back from their medical team that everybody's coming back in good fitness. And this one that I've read about today up at Manchester United, Ole, with all the problems and the speculation of new managers and the digs left, right and centre that he's taking, he'll be looking at that. And he's done his hamstring, I think, hasn't he? So he'll be thinking, oh my God, what an app. When it rains, it pours. And hopefully the break has done him good and he'll get a bit of colour back in his face and he'll get that lovely little grin that he's got, that cheeky boy next door, nice grin back on his face to bring some calmness, some enthusiasm into that dressing room. And I think that Romario might do okay, you know.
Well, this is the thing. The silver lining that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has at Manchester United, which, with respect, you might not have had at Brentford, is that strength in depth. The fact you've got another star on the bench there.
How good is that goalie?
Romero.
Yeah.
People rate him as a seriously top-end starting Premier League goalkeeper. The sort of guy who could start for an Everton, and it is seen by some as a kind of accident of chance that he is a substitute at all, and he's only a reserve at United because he's behind De Gea. So
but De Gea's been making errors, hasn't he?
He has.
So just perhaps, Ollie might get a break, and perhaps this could be a blessing.
So you're saying he might get a chance to drop De Gea if Romero comes in because he has to, due to injury, and then does really well.
Well, he's got to do really well, hasn't he? But if you're Romero, you've got to be thinking, this is my big chance. Hamstring, that's got to be at minimum 2 to 3 weeks, minimum. So if he goes in, they get a couple of results, and he's desperate to do well and be in a positive attitude, I'm sure he will be, then this has got to be his big chance to stake his claim to be the number one. And if they win games with him playing, especially if they beat Liverpool, it's going to be a monumental day for him, isn't it? Monumental weekend and a turning point probably. And I think Martial's fit, isn't he?
I think he's coming back, hopefully. A bit of context for Romero, by the way. The man's got 96 Argentina caps. So he's not going to be looking at this game against Liverpool and going, oh, Mo Salah, that's a bit scary. This is a seasoned international footballer who's going to be up for it.
Oh, crikey, yeah. Well, like I say, Johnny, it's his chance to make his mark, to get into that Manchester United team, get the crowd up with a great performance against Liverpool. And I think I've read that some of those Liverpool players that have been injured, like Matip, Alisson, are going to be fit, and Salah apparently. He's had a little knock. He's going to be fit. So it looks like it's going to be a full first team for Liverpool. So for Manchester United, the chance to really throw... They haven't lost yet, have they, Manchester United? Liverpool haven't lost yet. So this is a real chance now for them to get amongst it. And maybe, just maybe, not definitely, maybe, this could be the opportunity they need.
If Manchester United do slip up, though, in the absence of David De Gea, the question I would hypothetically have to ask you, Martin,
I know what's coming, Johnny,
is would the manager be under pressure? And that is certainly the suggestion coming from the Daily Mail today, who are reporting that former Juventus boss Massimiliano Allegri is very close to Manchester United, with a deal worth over £6.5 million a season being discussed. What do you think? Do you genuinely believe they could be lining the next guy up already?
Well, that is how it normally works. When we see these managers getting the sack and it flashes across Sky Sports News with that yellow band across the bottom of the screen, breaking news, Martin Allen has been sacked again and again.
I don't remember ever seeing one of them.
Well, I've seen a few, let me tell you. Normally there's somebody lined up a week or two before, maybe even be a little bit more than that. Keep your eye on the job. Look, it's not going well. If it doesn't improve, we're going to bring somebody in. Would you be interested? They have a meeting and they get to know it. I.e. me, I get the bullet. Ollie gets the bullet. And within 24 hours, 48 hours, we saw one at Oldham the other week. It was done, I think it was done in 15 minutes, wasn't it? Unbelievable. So that really does tell you. That is what it's like right the way through, to be honest. And it wouldn't surprise me one little bit. But if they put in a good performance and really go play well, full of energy, enthusiasm, and some of those plays. Rashford, I thought, was good the other night for England.
Very good.
And he has got the pace to hurt them, even against Van Dijk and Matip. He has got the pace that could get behind the lines to break in and score. Then it may all be different. And then they play Norwich in the next game, and I really do think that would probably be a more decisive game where they'd be looking to say, if it doesn't work that day, then we might have to look at doing something different.
Well, former Manchester United midfielder Darren Fletcher has given his thoughts on Rashford and his slow start to the season.
I think he's probably feeling the pressure of that a little bit this season, so you just almost say to him, relax, try not to try too hard. But I think Marcus Rashford, again, like Manchester United, could almost be the game that kickstarts his season because he's a real talisman. And, you know, the goals are in him, the performances are in him. All it takes is something to click.
Martin, do you think going away with England, having the confidence of being picked for his nation, could have actually been a really good thing for Marcus Rashford?
Yeah, it could. And I think what'll also help him, Johnny, is if Martial is fit, Martial to play up the middle as a number 9, as a striker through the middle, because they have not had anybody to do that role since Lukaku was sold. And I think with Rashford coming off the left-hand side, coming inside on his right foot and getting behind the lines coming inside, then I think he'll be a real danger. Being dropped for England and not playing for England has also probably knocked him back, and he might have had to take a step back and think to himself, well, I need to step up my form here because I want to be playing for England. I want to be in that England 11 and not on the periphery. And his performance the other night, I thought he played really well.
Of course, some of the headlines from that England game against Bulgaria were focused on the positives, the brilliance of that England performance. Rather, more of them were rightly focused on the negatives and the racism they very sadly suffered. From a managerial point of view, how do you think Gareth Southgate handled the situation?
Prior to the game, highlighting the issues that were there previously in Bulgaria, I think he perhaps should have just really said nothing about it and let what was going to take its course take its course. I think his focus should have been more on his team and his performance, and what will be with those morons was going to be. Privately, early on, because I've been together for a few days, you get all those players together and say to them, what is your thoughts? What's your thinking? How do you all feel collectively? How do you feel as a group of men if these things happen? What do you want me to do? How do you want me to play it? So you give that back to the players and let the players have the feedback and the players' feelings and thoughts, because you have to plan that. If it did happen like it did in the second half, and it was ongoing in the second half, even after 2 warnings, they could have walked off. I think as a manager, you have to be prepared for that. Afterwards, I thought he handled himself supremely well. He conducted himself without any anger, any attitude. He was calm, he was clear, he was decisive, and his everything he said, I thought was 100% right.
And I think particularly with that calmness, when you factor in, he got heckled by a Bulgarian journalist in his news conference, accusing him of basically lying about the extent of the racism. He had a cameraman swear at him for questioning it at all. I'd have lost my rag. I'd have lost my rag before they even questioned me, let alone after they started heckling. He is beyond his abilities as a manager, which, as far as I'm concerned, are undoubted. I think he is a very, very good man to have leading the country.
He is, yeah. He's a proper nice bloke. I was up at St George's Park about 6 months ago for a medical, and I was up there really early in the morning, and across the other side of the car park, 50 yards away, 50 yards away, I saw him pulling in his car. He jumped out of his car, and I just sort of waved, thinking he was probably just going to go in and walk off, and off you go, because you're the England manager.
Yeah.
But he strode towards my car at a good pace with a big smile on his face across the car park, and walked all the way over to me, and I saw him coming towards me, so obviously I started walking towards him, and I shook his hand, and I stood talking to him for about 10 or 15 minutes, all about football, all about the games that I go to see in the Premier League, all about players, all about training, asking what I'm doing. He knew everything about my career and what I've been doing for the last few years. And when he walked away, I said, "Lovely to speak to you." He walked away, and I thought, top man. Top man. And I think you're right. To represent us, represent our players and the supporters and the fans, I think he's a fantastic leader of our team.
He is indeed. Just a reminder that there have now been 6 Bulgarian fans arrested for racist gestures during that game on Monday. 9 others are currently being investigated. And if there's any more news on that story this afternoon, we will of course keep you updated. But it's not just the senior team racking up big wins this week. We'll be talking about the under-21's impressive display last night next.
Love sport.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it, Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not, but with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Have you had enough of extortionate energy bills? A spokesman said could help you find the cheapest energy deals on the market. Don't take our word for it. There's hundreds of spokesman said customers who've saved big. Brian from Derbyshire saved £400 on his energy bills, and Tony from Northampton saved a massive £2,800 on his gas and electric. A spokesmansaid.com, the leading price comparison site where you can switch to the cheapest energy tariffs on the market in just minutes.
Thespokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Cancer. It can affect anyone. And when it does, Macmillan are right there to support them. From the moment of diagnosis, we offer physical, financial, and emotional support. And it's your donations that make it possible. So we can be on the phone, in hospitals, running support centres, and ready to help people deal with the fallout. We are funded by you, the public. So please give what you can at macmillan.org.uk. Macmillan Cancer Support, right there with you.
My mum and dad say that I don't need lots of sugar. I'm sweet enough already. So we used the Change for Life food scanner app to find out how much sugar is in our food and drink. It's surprising how much we found. So I put my detective hat on to find the healthier choices. Woohoo! Found one, Mum! You can be food smart too. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app today.
Want to know how I change a light bulb? I hold the bulb and I wait for the world to revolve around me.
This is Love Sport.
6-0 for the senior team, 5-1 for the under-21s. As far as England are concerned, it's coming home. And beyond just the scoreline for the England under-21s against Austria, the performance gave us a lot to feel encouraged by. An Eddie Nketiah hat-trick, all brilliant poachers' goals, further strengthening his credentials. But we've got to talk about Calum Hudson-Odoi. He scored 2 goals. One, he picks it up in his own half, carries it the length of the field and curves it into the top right-hand corner from 20 yards. The other, he hovers expertly on the penalty spot, gets a cross clipped into him and volleys it into the roof of the net. He looks every bit the proper player we knew he was. And to be doing this already on his return from injury is even more impressive. But after the game, under-21s manager Adi Boothroyd was glowing about Calum Hudson-Odoi's attitude while with the junior team.
I think sometimes, perhaps if a player was in the senior team and came back down, there would be the opportunity for them to be moody, but he has been first class throughout, on the pitch, off the pitch. I think, if anything, in both the games he's played, he was trying too hard, really, to, sometimes you try so hard that things don't come off.
I found that interesting that he's talking about Hudson-Odoi's attitude. With the little episode with James Maddison and the rumours, and they're only rumours, that his attitude with the under-21s wasn't great when they had to go to Italy or France to play in that tournament in the summer. And he mentions his attitude and highlights it, and I thought that was a key point. I think he was sending out messages there to some of the other players. If you come and play in this team, you better be right on it. And if you're not right on it, you won't be progressing up into that full team with the manager. 2 brilliant goals. He's a fantastic player, and I'd have to ask the question: is he going to play on the left, or is he going to be playing on the right? And Sancho, is he going to play out on the right, or is that going to be Hudson-Odoi? The manager's got a tough job there, who to choose and who to pick when it comes to that right-hand side.
Who would you pick?
I'm not swerving that, Johnny. I haven't seen enough of Sancho. I know he was left out of their team last week because they said he's got a bit tired and he's played just about every game for Dortmund. But he's clearly a fantastic ball player. Sexy soccer. Oh my God, give number 1. He's got it all. A little bit different to Hudson-Odoi, who's also up and down, who's a bit more of a tracker. He'll track fullbacks and go with. But I would need to see them more often. See him more often against good quality opposition. And that's no disrespect for Austria under-21s. When it comes to the top level, you want to see him doing that at the top level against the top international teams if we are going to go on and win this World Cup.
I think when it comes to the right wing, for me, there's no argument because Jadon Sancho is so good on that right-hand side. They're both so young that either could establish themselves, as you say, as the better player. I think they're both going to be top quality. Sancho, for me, at the moment, is closer to the finished article. I think he's more complete. But the more significant point there is that, for me, again, Calum Hudson-Odoi is better on the left. If you look at the second goal he scored against Austria, the one where he picks it up in his own half, carries it onward, but crucially carries it onward, drifting infield.
Inside,
exactly, onto that right foot. That's where he's dangerous. I suppose the question is, if the Euro started next week, who starts in the front three alongside Kane and Sterling? Hudson-Odoi, Sancho or Rashford? At the moment, for me, it's Sancho, but I can see an England team of the future where all three of them start, frankly.
Yeah, you could be right. And you've also got Tammy Abraham, who's got a lot of pace. I know Harry Kane is a fantastic player and a leader. And I've got to say, I think the way he's conducted himself in his interviews and how he's come across, I think he's been an outstanding individual within our team, off the field. Not so good on it. He's going through a little bit of a shaky time. He had a few chances the other night that he missed. But Tammy Abraham will be pushing him. Abraham has got pace to go in behind and not just play to feet this side of the centre halves.
I think you're right. It's going to be very, very hard to displace Harry Kane. But Calum Hudson-Odoi himself was asked whether he'd caught Gareth Southgate's eye.
I always look to the seniors no matter what. Whenever I get the opportunity to go over there, I always want to try and impress and do my best that I can whenever opportunity comes. And I'm just trying to go back to club football now, try and work my hardest there. And hopefully the opportunity will come whenever it is. And I try to keep working hard, keep improving, hopefully the opportunity will come.
What I love there, Martin, is the modesty, the unwillingness to put pressure on Gareth Southgate. Son, you've just scored 2 brilliant goals in front of the world media. We all got into the office and the first thing anyone said was, "Did you see Calum Hudson-Odoi last night?" Of course he's caught Gareth's eye. It would be very easy for him to come out and say, "Well, did you see the goals I scored, mate?" Of course I have. But he's going, "No, it's for the gaffer. I always try and take my chances. I learned from the older players, and now I'm going back to Chelsea." Seems like he's got his head screwed on.
He's got his head screwed on, but when he gets back to Chelsea, he'll also know that Will.i.am, he, at the moment, is playing very, very well. I'm not sure if it's because his contract's up at the end of the season, but he has definitely taken a step up. And I would imagine in the summer, Frank was probably penciling in his team when he was on holiday down in Butlins, and he probably had Hudson-Odoi to play on the left instead of Willian, but he has been so good. Willian has been so good, he is at the moment keeping him out of that Chelsea team.
Well, we're thinking a lot now about who the squad will be for Euro 2020 because we've almost qualified. It's almost safe to look that far ahead. And there is so much strength in depth for England. We've got a set of data which has aggregated all of the odds across all the major bookmakers for who's likely to get in. And it makes for very, very interesting reading. Rather than telling you who's in this squad, I think we'll start by saying some of the names who miss out. Tammy Abraham is one of them, 8 to 15 to be included. Michael Keane, who I have to say looked very, very shoddy against the Czech Republic, he's out, 11 to 8. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain misses the cut. Harry Winks just misses the cut, as apparently does Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Callum Wilson, Phil Foden, Fikayo Tomori, Ruben Loftus-Cheek, and, for example, Jack Grealish. Are there any names there, Martin, of the omitted list who you're really surprised to not see included?
Yeah, he will definitely be in that squad. And I would have to say,
Poacher's efforts around the 6-yard box look very, very lively with his movement. He's on loan at Leeds from Arsenal, and he keeps being given cameo appearances off the bench. Now, when he gets them, he tends to impress. He, like as not, scores a goal. So why would you not include him? From a Marcelo Bielsa point of view, there's the question of, well, who's ahead of him? Patrick Bamford? I look at it from the outside, and I think Eddie deserves a chance.
Do you?
Yeah, I think he has to. If we look at the top scorers in the Championship,
he's got 4, hasn't he, Eddie?
Yeah, he's not right up there. You've got Mitrovic, of course, leading the way with 8. But if you factor into the
But
conversation,
he's been sub. How many times has he been sub, Guy?
well, this is the thing.
What's the ratio?
Most games he's coming off the bench for the last 20 minutes. He's not started in the Championship more than once, I don't think. And does he have an argument at the point where every time you get a chance, you score a goal? Surely you should be starting.
Well, I think the question will be coming from the senior people at Arsenal. They will be wanting him playing, starting, just like Tammy Abraham did last year for Aston Villa, and when he went on loan before that to Bristol City. The deal is kind of, you've got to go there and play. It's no good him going there and being on the bench. He could be on the bench at Arsenal. So no, that they're not going to be happy with that. The player also, I'm sure, is not going to be happy, and I'm sure they'll be looking through the paperwork to find out if they can get a recall in January and put him somewhere, even if it's not the top team in that division, even if it's a club 4, 5, 6 places down, where he's going to go in, and that boy, we can tell, 4 goals from one start, his son going, and his hat-trick. He got hat-trick last night, didn't he?
He did.
He's going to be he looks like he's going to be a top player, and his comment about not playing enough and he wants to play at Leeds, well, I kind of think he's right.
Let's just hear from him quickly on that, and then we'll come back to discussing his goals to minute ratio, which I've got a hold of in just a moment.
Obviously I'll never be happy with being on the bench. When I play, I pride myself on being on the team. I think I'm good enough to be in the team. So all I can do really is put in the performances I do. When I come on, try and contribute, and I think with the chances I've had there, I've done really well.
I wonder what Marcelo Bielsa makes of that. We'll get your thoughts on that in a moment, Martin. But here are the numbers. So he's got 2 goals in 6 Championship appearances and 2 goals in 2 EFL Cup appearances. So 4 in 8. But realistically, that's 4 goals in 301 minutes of play, which is just over 3 full games worth of play. It's a goal every 75 minutes. And if you just take his Championship goals, that's 2 goals in 133 minutes of game time that he's had in his 6 appearances so far. And if you compare that, so that's an average of about 66 minutes per goal. You take that in comparison to some of the other players and the top scorers list in the Championship so far this season. Mitrovic, 8 goals, 124 minutes per goal. Dan Johnson, exactly the same. Ollie Watkins, 7 goals, 140 minutes per goal. Mackie Wells at QPR, he's got only 87 minutes per goal, so that's pretty impressive, you've got to say. But Eddie Nketiah's minutes per goal is essentially more impressive than any of these other players you want to name. Lewis Graben, Stephen Fletcher, Ivan Cavallero. He's better than all of them in that sense.
Well, 66 minutes per goal at any level is absolutely lethal. But when it comes to Eddie putting the pressure on, you wonder whether there's also an element of him being a bit embarrassed about how he ended up at Leeds anyway. Remember at the time we heard the story of him being wooed by various clubs with kind of Dragon's Den style PowerPoint presentations. Bristol City wanted him, Fortuna Düsseldorf wanted him, Leeds wanted him as well, and they all had to kind of show Arsenal Football Club why he should go there. The rumours at the time were that Unai Emery wanted him to go to Bristol City, and Eddie basically overruled the club and said, no, I'm going to Leeds. If he's now not getting enough football at Leeds, from the Unai point of view, Eddie could kind of be left with a bit of egg on his face, couldn't he?
Yeah, he could be. And listening to his comments in his interview there, I don't think that was at all in any way controversial or disrespectful to the club and the manager. He's saying that he wants to play well, wants to get on and score goals, and doing his best. No, I don't think his interview was in any way, shape or form disrespectful to the club. I would imagine he's thinking he should have gone to Bristol City. They play an expansive style of football, just what Emery would have wanted. Tammy Abraham went there and done really, really well. Johnson is a very, very good manager. He knows how to look after those types of players that have come down from the Premier League, as he's proved with Tammy. And I think that would have been a better move for him. He's been starting every game. His goal ratios. When you say once? We don't normally work it like that. Once every 60 minutes. It normally works out at. He gets a goal every 1 game. He gets a goal every 2 games.
Better than a goal a game, isn't it?
Goal
every 60
a game.
minutes, that's a goal and a half a game.
So that is something else. And you've got to also remember, Arsenal, they've got that centre forward called Martinelli, and I've seen him now twice, and he is a fantastic centre forward. So I'd imagine he'd be thinking, well, why am I going out and Martinelli's staying there? So I'm sure he'd be disappointed in himself now, or with his agent, why he didn't take that Bristol City move, as Tammy Abraham has already paved it and been successful walking down that pathway.
Well, from Martin Allen to Martinelli, Martin, as ever with you, it's a tour de force. Coming up, we're talking Tour de France.
This is Love Sport.
Cancer. It can affect anyone. And when it does, Macmillan are right there to support them. From the moment of diagnosis, we offer physical, financial, and emotional support. And it's your donations that make it possible. So we can be on the phone, in hospitals, running support centres, and ready to help people deal with the fallout. We are funded by you, the public. So please give what you can at macmillan.org.uk. Macmillan Cancer Support, right there with you.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it. Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage.
Tenna men.
Cage.
Pants and pads.
You're
discreet. Masculine.
You're
secure absorption zone. Buy online or in shops.
You're
Tenna men. Keep control.
You're in?
No.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. Brexit will bring changes that affect businesses in many ways, particularly if you buy from EU suppliers, sell to EU customers, provide services to EU clients, and receive customer data from other businesses in the EU. Businesses need to prepare. Find out how at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
Love Sport.
Well, it's the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive. You're with me, Johnny Burrow, Guy Watts, and special guest Martin Allen. And Guy has all your latest sporting headlines and weather.
I like the idea of calling Martin Allen Martinelli. He's sort of our very own young hot prospect.
Imagine that.
We plucked him out of the 4th division in Brazil.
He didn't play at that high level. Sorry, Martin. Yeah, headlines. Bulgarian police have now arrested 6 people for making racist gestures during Monday's Euro 2020 qualifier with England. 9 others are being investigated. The match was stopped twice after some of the home supporters directed monkey chants at England's black players in Sofia. Gareth Southgate's team won 6-0, of course, at the end of the game. La Liga have asked for this month's meeting between Barcelona and Real Madrid to be moved due to protests in Catalonia. The Spanish top flight want the El Clasico match switched to Madrid, with Barcelona then playing at home in March next year. We're going to get some reaction to that news with Spanish football expert Will Folks just after 4. 9 Catalan separatist leaders were jailed on Monday for their part in a failed bid for independence. And the marathon and race walk events at next year's Olympics in Japan have been moved from Tokyo. They'll now be held 800 kilometers away in Sapporo, where the temperature is up to 6 degrees cooler in the summer months. Almost half the field failed to complete the women's marathon at the recent World Athletics Championships in Doha due to the heat. We're going to have a bit more cycling for you in a moment, so stay with us.
This is Love Sport.
Cancer. It can affect anyone. And when it does, Macmillan are right there to support them. From the moment of diagnosis, we offer physical, financial, and emotional support. And it's your donations that make it possible. So we can be on the phone, in hospitals, running support centres, and ready to help people deal with the fallout. We are funded by you, the public. So please give what you can at macmillan.org.uk. Macmillan Cancer Support, right there with you.
Love Sport.
Well, the route for the 107th edition of the Tour de France has been released, and Britain's Chris Froome has called it brutal. Riders will face 29 mountains on the 21-stage route, which starts in Nice on the 27th of June. Now, Felix Lowe is a cycling journalist for Eurosport. He joins us on the line now. Good afternoon, Felix. Is Froome right to be a bit worried here? Is this route as nasty as he's suggesting?
Well, considering that he's still limping around and has a metal plate in his leg, I would say, yeah, he's probably got grounds to be slightly worried. It is a tough route. He's right. It is brutal, and we still don't know whether or not, he will even be at the start line. He's outlined his aim, his comeback or what have you, and he's racing in Japan, I think, later this season. But we still don't know whether he'll be able to get to that, the same kind of level that saw him win the Tour 4 times.
And in terms of his rivals, of course, all eyes are going to be on Team Ineos member Egan Bernal, who won last time. Is he going to be able to retain that title?
Well, he's in quite a good position, really, because the focus will all be on Froome, even though he is the defending champion again. But now, the focus is on Froome, especially from the British perspective of the owners at Ineos and the British contingent there. He went into this year's Tour de France kind of as Plan B behind Geraint Thomas, kind of as backup for the Welsh defending champion, and it kind of paid off well there. And so I imagine he's not too concerned about kind of supposedly going into this next tour as perhaps the Plan B, even if he might well emerge to be the Plan A. Should Froome not be able to fully recover from that nasty crash. It's a route which certainly suits Bernal, but it's also a route which suits many other riders, in particular the French contingent.
Chris has said that the route that's been chosen is brutal. Now, does it change every year? Sorry to be a bit naive, but I thought they went along the same route year in, year out.
No, so the route changes each year, and that's one of the kind of main appealing factors for the fans. There's a lot of build-up and speculation as to what climbs, what cities and what have you, what routes are going to appear. And this year it's very different. I mean, there aren't that many of the traditional kind of legendary climbs that you associate with the Tour de France. Alpe d'Huez, for example, Mont Ventoux, the Galibier, the Tourmalet, all these kind of legendary climbs. These have been completely omitted, and in their place we've got kind of some lesser-known mountains, some quite important climbs from the past, but not maybe as big. Some totally new climbs. We've got a few new finishes this year. So yeah, it's a really exciting prospect, and it is very mountainous. You mentioned 29 climbs in the intro there. I mean, that's just the 29 categorized climbs. There are loads of other uncategorized climbs, and we've got some real brutes. And it's a route which dips into all 5 of France's mountain ranges. And we have climbing, 4,000 meters of climbing on day 2, which is unprecedented in the Tour de France. The first summit finish on stage 4, and the first week alone we have 3 mountain ranges, and the Alps are dipped into the Massif Central and then the Pyrenees at the end of the week. So yeah, I think Chris Froome is probably correct in summarising this succinctly as brutal.
I think that just about sums it up, doesn't it? They've taken what I think is probably about the toughest sporting event in the world and made it even harder if that was possible. But in your view, Felix, is there possibly even too much climbing? I know it creates a lot of the drama and, it is kind of what the Tour de France is all about. But is it going to be alienating a lot of the riders who aren't kind of specialist climbers, the sprinters and the all-rounders a little bit? Is it going to ultimately only be about climbing for 3 weeks rather than, being a little bit more balanced as we're accustomed to it being?
Well, I think it's important to note that there are still many stages which are open to the sprinters. There are only kind of 2, perhaps 3 kind of out-and-out kind of flat stages which are ideally suited to the sprinters. But there are lots of finishes which could well come down to a bunch sprint. I mean, I'm going through the route myself. I've kind of picked up maybe 8, even 9 stages where the sprinters can come out and play. I think what's interesting in this route is that you don't get many of those back to back, and so you have these you have the climbs and the sprints. It's quite spread out. It's a very varied route. You're not going to have a period where you have an entire week where every stage finishes with a flat bunch sprint. So it's keeping all the riders on their toes, and it's mixing it up a lot. And interestingly, while there is a lot of talk about all these climbs, I mean, this year we saw the Tour go over 2,000 meters on 8 occasions. I think, in 2020, the race only goes above 2,000 meters on 1 occasion. So while there are loads of climbs, it's not kind of a super high altitude Tour de France. And so that does open things up maybe to the riders like Julian Alaphilippe, who wore the yellow jersey for so many days this year, a rider who isn't traditionally a kind of out-and-out climber, but he can hold his own on the mountains. He's not going to have to drag his body over these 2,000 meter kind of long mountains if he wants to contend for the yellow jersey.
And for Froome personally, he's continuing a comeback from that terrible crash. How is he placed to actually be involved in this tour at all? Is there a feeling that he is going to be there?
Well, I mean, that's the $64 million question. I mean, we don't actually know how he's going to be. I mean, his injuries were pretty grim. I mean, if you go through the report, the amount of blood loss, the length of the surgery and everything. I mean, it's pretty grim reading. So yeah, we don't know what he's going to be like, and this off season is going to be absolutely crucial for Froome. I mean, he's supposedly racing in Japan. I mean, it's not really a race; it's more of a criterium coming up at the end of the season. But it's all going to be in his recovery over the off season, and then it'll be interesting to see how things pan out next season. Because if riders like Geraint Thomas and Egan Bernal, if they're favoured by Ineos for some of the smaller kind of 1 week races and they do very well, then they're going to put themselves very much in the shop window for leading the team. There's that whole sentimental kind of reason for picking Froome. He's won the Tour 4 times now, and should he win a 5th, that would be breaking kind of an age-old record, or levelling an age-old record. He would join the pantheon of greats, the 5 riders even who have won the Tour 5 times. But you don't pick a team on sentimentality, and Dave Brailsford won't think, oh yeah, I've got to bend over backwards to let Chris Froome win this Tour. He wants to pick the team that's going to deliver Ineos the victory, and if Froome isn't in the best position to do that, then I'm sure he won't be afraid of omitting him and perhaps saying, look, focus on the Giro or perhaps even the Vuelta later in the season.
Felix, great to talk to you. Thank you for your time. Felix Lowe there, who is a cycling journalist for Eurosport. When we're talking about comebacks from injury, Martin, what's the nastiest one you ever had? How hard was it to get back to your best?
Oh, punctured lung, Johnny. Punctured lung away at Sheffield Wednesday, Hillsborough. Got an elbow off a goal kick on the halfway line in the side of my ribs. And, standard stuff, really. Graham Hyde, little midfield player, great lad. Didn't really mean to do it, but just jabbed me underneath my arm and the rib cage. Started to lose breath, and the next thing I was stood next to the referee and just said, I can't breathe, and just collapsed on the floor.
Was it just the one lung that went?
Yeah, the right. If you do 2, Johnny, you're in big trouble, mate.
I know.
Probably wouldn't be sitting here today, I don't think. So no, it was absolute agony to getting me off on the stretcher. And the one thing I did like is the Sheffield Wednesday supporters all clapped me off.
That's a good effort.
And I wrote to them after, when I was in hospital. So I was in hospital up there for 2 weeks, trying to get right again after the operation. So I wrote to them and they put it in the club programme. And then whenever my Brentford team, we spoke about the playoffs, we played Sheffield Wednesday in the playoffs. Yeah. When we went up to Hillsborough, they always gave me a great reception up there and had a good relationship with them. Yeah, proper good people with Sheffield Wednesday fans, and that was the hardest one. Took me a while to get over it. When you can't breathe and you think you're going to die, which is it, but that is what it's like. You just cannot get the air in. It's spooky stuff.
Yeah, it's not a good one. I was always told I was at serious risk of a collapsed lung. I fall into every single little bracket that's meant, because it can just happen. I supposedly am at risk. It's happened to my dad. It's happened to my brother.
Really?
So if you hear a pop at any point and I start gasping, just give Guy a shout, yeah?
Giving your team a voice. Love Sport Radio.
You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage.
Tenna men. Pants and pads.
You're
discreet. Masculine.
You're
secure absorption zone. Buy online or in shops.
You're
Tenna men. Keep control.
Urine?
No.
Cancer. It can affect anyone. And when it does, Macmillan are right there to support them. From the moment of diagnosis, we offer physical, financial, and emotional support. And it's your donations that make it possible. So we can be on the phone, in hospitals, running support centers, and ready to help people deal with the fallout. We are funded by you, the public. So please give what you can at macmillan.org.uk. Macmillan Cancer Support, right there with you.
Hi, my name's Kurt Edwards. I work in advertising and live in Surrey. Last year, the family contents insurance was £745. A friend of mine had recommended a spokesmansaid.com. When it came for this year's renewal, I managed to get it for £403. So for those 10 minutes on that website, I saved over £340. Told my family, my friends, you'd be absolutely mad not to give it a go.
Thespokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. This means that travelling to the EU will change. You'll need to check online if your passport is valid for travel to Europe. If you're planning on driving, you'll need to check if you have the right documents to drive. And make sure your travel insurance covers all your healthcare needs. To keep your trip on track, check what you need to do at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
I'd never be a vegetarian. I think that is a huge mistake. So clever, so funny.
This is Love Sport.
Lewis Hamilton has hit the headlines today, not for driving a Formula One car very, very fast, or even for any involvement with the Paradise Papers, rather for an Instagram statement. He posted on his stories a statement which I'll paraphrase. It begins, "Hey world, I hope everyone is enjoying their day." And it is effectively a call to arms to us all to take up veganism. It says, "I'm sad right now with the thought of where the world is going. Extinction of our race is becoming more and more likely." And he ends by saying, "Honestly, I feel like giving up on everything. Shut down completely. Why bother when the world is such a mess and people don't seem to care? I'm going to take a moment to gather my thoughts. Thank you to those of you who do care about the world." Strong stuff. First thought has to be the hope that Lewis Hamilton is okay and that this hasn't come from a broader place of darkness. But in terms of what he actually says, he is right that taking up veganism is good for the environment, right? We should really all do that. I will say that I haven't. I try and eat less meat, but I'm far from holy. I'm currently drinking a coffee with dairy milk in it. I am not perfect.
It's not a disposable cup either. It is a disposable cup, by the way.
It is a disposable cup. Normally it isn't, but I forgot mine today, Guy. I'm sorry. But that's kind of the point, right? This whole conversation has to be hedged around people trying to do their best but not being perfect. On that front, Lewis Hamilton has areas of his life in which he tries to do his best. He is, for example, a plant-based human. That is to say, he's vegan. Everything he has consumed is natural and comes from the ground. However, his critics are also pointing out that he owns a £25 million private jet, races Formula One cars for a living at hundreds of miles an hour, has a £13 million supercar collection of his very own, owns a £3 million yacht, avoided taxes on a tax avoidance scheme, which the Paradise Papers, lots of people were guilty of, but he was one of them. It's not linked to the
environment, though, is it?
It isn't. But he also does race around in a car emblazoned due to the Mercedes deal, not his own, but still massively plastered with the logo of Petronas, who are a Malaysian oil and gas company. Can he, gentlemen, sit there in that context and lecture the rest of us about our engagement with the planet, because his carbon footprint will be probably 100 times greater than mine?
Well, it's the Prince Harry thing all over again, isn't it? And we talked about that quite a lot when that was a big story a month or two ago, and I said that I felt pretty strongly that it was something that he and Meghan, or he and the Duchess of Sussex, were ill-advised perhaps to kind of get too bogged down into put their name too much alongside as a campaign, because you just can't really say you support that campaign and then not be hypocritical about it. Harry and Meghan probably do have to use private jets at times. That is an unfortunate side effect as far as they're concerned, given their love for the environment of their status in life. But their status in life cannot be changed, or they could relinquish their royal status if they do really care that way, and then they wouldn't have to travel in the same level of security and all the rest of it, and they probably could stop using private jets. Lewis Hamilton, likewise, if he wasn't in the public eye, he wouldn't have made all the money that he has and allowed himself to buy a private jet that he uses to fly around. But I think that it's difficult, isn't it? Today we've seen that a load of celebrities, over 100 high-profile names, including people like Jude Law, Benedict Cumberbatch, and people like that, Steve Coogan as well, they've signed an open letter saying that they acknowledge their hypocrisy in getting involved in things like the Extinction Rebellion protest, but that it is a desirable side effect in order to promote the wider cause of trying to, solve what they call a climate emergency. It's difficult because Lewis Hamilton has done, if you like, the profile of the cause good. A lot of people who are fans of Lewis Hamilton because they like the way he drives cars will not have known a lot about this, and they may have gone away and looked it up and thought, oh, it is a good cause. On the other hand, as an individual, do you think he's left himself looking like a bit of a plonker?
Can I just ask you something else, both of you? I'm interested to your views on this. Because he's a top sportsman in his field, does that give him the right, or should he be going out there saying about the planet and all this other stuff? Why don't he just concentrate on what he's doing?
Well, there is an argument there. My personal view is that if you've got a platform for whatever reason, it's a good thing if you try and use that platform for good. And Lewis Hamilton, as you say, famous for driving F1 cars. If he can use that, as Guy was suggesting, to have a broader significance on the world, I don't have a problem with it.
I'd question it, Martin. I'd question it if his performance as a racing driver was faltering, but he's about to win a 6th World Drivers title.
He's awesome, isn't he? He's
only Michael
amazing.
Schumacher's got more. He is amazing, yeah. And I don't think his dedication actually at race weekends has ever been questioned. And actually his dedication to life as a racing driver, except for maybe a couple of years when he was younger, when he was at McLaren and their car wasn't very competitive. I think he was a little bit disillusioned. The last few years, since he's been at Mercedes, obviously he's won the title every year except for one when Nico Rosberg beat him. I would agree if take Paul Pogba, for example, as someone who I think is distracted by off-field or non-sport related issues and has his performance affected. I don't think you could say that for Lewis Hamilton. I don't mind him having extracurricular interests and passions and campaigns. I just think with this one, hasn't he done more damage to a public profile that, as we've talked about a few times on this show before, isn't actually what it should be given what his sporting achievements are? Given how much we've loved as a country people like Damon Hill or Nigel Mansell or people like this who have achieved so little in comparison to Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton is nowhere near as popular as those guys. Is it because of stuff like this?
Yeah,
is that a good example of it for you, Mike?
Yeah, I think it is. But
he's trying to do a good thing. He's trying to raise awareness of the environment.
I'm not sure it's his position as a driver, a racing driver, or a footballer, or a good cricketer, to come out and to put your political views out there, or they're not political, but they're your views about life.
I think.
Your views out there. Concentrate on what you're doing. Be a top performer like he is. Try and get 7 wins. What is it he needs to get the records? It's 6 or
7 to equal it.
7 to equal it. Get number 8. But I'm not sure the people actually want to hear it from him, if you know what I'm saying.
I take your point, Martin, but there is an argument that if every famous sportsman just focuses on being a famous sportsman, and every famous actor focuses on being a famous actor, and every famous broadcaster, and so on, that'll be great, and we'll have a lot of very focused F1 drivers and actors and broadcasters, and we will also then have to deal with the impending heat death of our planet. And there are people, and I suspect I'm probably one of them, who would say, actually, even if it's hypocritical, and in the case of Lewis Hamilton, it absolutely is, by the way, even if it's hypocritical, if by doing this he can raise the profile of the cause of environmentalism, veganism more narrowly, that is a good thing. He's not becoming a less good F1 driver by doing it.
Everyone's a hypocrite in this, right? Because I guarantee you that 90+% of the people actually lying down and doing the weird stuff that they're doing at the Extinction Rebellion protest will be in some way hypocritical. They'll have taken a flight in the last year. They'll have driven in a car, whatever it is. Any of these things that contribute to it. And that proportionally, the influence they have compared to Lewis Hamilton is tiny. This guy has actually a massive following that he can potentially influence. That is what the term social media influencer derives from, the fact that someone in a high-profile position can influence the way that people think. And so, yes, he has a disproportionately high carbon footprint because of what he does. But should that mean that no person ever, a footballer, will have a high carbon footprint because they travel around a lot? They might fly away just for a bit of rehab.
Has he still got
They've
that private
European
jet?
Games. I believe he does. He does. And private
Why don't
jet.
he fly economy then with Thomas Cook or someone?
He'd
Well, that'd be
struggle to
tricky.
do that.
He could just fly on normal first class, though, couldn't he? I imagine he's not sure.
That would be
few
a
quid.
hardship, wouldn't it? Normal first class. Poor old
And
Lewis.
we know from the Prince Harry thing that private jets create a way disproportionately higher carbon footprint than flying normally does, and flying normally apparently isn't great. I think it's unfortunate because I think Lewis Hamilton gets a lot of bad stick, and I think he gets too much bad stick. I don't think he gets enough credit as a racing driver, and B, I think he gets too much stick for what he does off the track. I think he is trying to. He clearly cares about this. I think the point is you can see from these messages, which are almost quite dark at times, that he does really care about this. It is kind of affecting him in the way he's thinking. But the problem is that I don't think he's been very well advised. I think someone could have advised him, say, Lewis, it's not really the moment. Why don't you wait until after you finish being a racing driver, which might only be 2-3 years away? It would mean a lot more then.
Or even wait until Mexico, or more probably America, win it and do it in your speech.
But I think he could be more subtle in his delivery and the way he puts it across. The delivery, I don't know. I doubt if he's got a PR person helping him with this. It's just not. doesn't sound, it doesn't feel right. It don't feel right, you know what I mean, somehow or other, when you read it. And the other day he was moaning, wasn't he? He finished third, didn't he? Because they had an extra stop or something in the pit lane. Yeah, back off, mate. Stop talking. Drive the car as fast as you can. Win as many points as you can. See you later. Bye-bye.
Martin Allen's got his foot down.
This is Love Sport.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it, sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Can you save money on your energy bills? Tony did, with help from a spokesmansaid.com. Getting people real savings.
I'm Tony from Northampton. My bills for gas and electricity had gone straight through the roof. I chose a Spokesman Said, and they saved me £2,800. It was so easy, I used them for my house and contents insurance too.
For help saving money on your energy bills, go to a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Cancer. It can affect anyone. And when it does, Macmillan are right there to support them. From the moment of diagnosis, we offer physical, financial, and emotional support. And it's your donations that make it possible. So we can be on the phone, in hospitals, running support centers, and ready to help people deal with the fallout. We are funded by you, the public. So please give what you can at macmillan.org.uk. Macmillan Cancer Support, right there with you.
There are fewer than 20 days to get ready for Brexit. Find out what you need to do to prepare now at gov.uk/Brexit.
Driving too close to the car in front gives you less time to react. You may not realise that you're tailgating. Leave a 2-second gap between you and the vehicle in front. When it's wet, leave a 4-second gap. By staying back, you give yourself time to react. Stay safe. Stay back. Highways England, connecting the country.
Coming up on the Posh Boys, we're talking David De Gea. He's got injured playing for Spain. Is that a problem for United ahead of the big game against Liverpool? We're going to be talking to professional snooker player Martin Gould. Ronnie O'Sullivan reckons the K2 Leisure Centre smells of urine. Is he right? And we're also going to be talking Trent Alexander-Arnold. He's a world record holder. Should he be?
On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 4, the Prime Minister's briefing his cabinet as Brexit talks continue in Brussels. European Council President Donald Tusk says everything should be clear in the next few hours ahead of a crucial meeting of EU leaders starting tomorrow. Boris Johnson spoke to Ireland's Prime Minister Leo Varadkar earlier, who's optimistic a deal can be done.
There are issues yet to be resolved, and hopefully that can be done today, allowing the House of Commons to give its view on it on Saturday. But if it's not, there is still more time. The 31st of October is still a few weeks away, and there is the possibility of an additional summit before that, if we need one.
Meanwhile, the Brexit secretaries implied the government will ask for an extension if no deal's in place this weekend. 2 more Bulgarian football fans have been arrested in connection with racist abuse of England players during their Euro 2020 qualifier. It means 6 are now in custody. Meanwhile, the family of an England fan who died in the build-up to Monday's match say they're absolutely broken. 32-year-old Rob Spray was said to have been in a helpless condition when found in Sofia city centre. A jury's been told they could convict Paul Gascoigne of a lesser charge if they find him not guilty of sexually assaulting a woman on a train. The ex-football star claims he only kissed the victim to reassure her she wasn't fat. Age verification measures designed to prevent children from watching online porn have been dropped. Digital Secretary Nicky Morgan says the legislation has been abandoned, with efforts instead focusing on a wider online strategy. Our technology correspondent Roland Manthorpe explains why it was controversial.
What we were looking at is the possibility of a gigantic database of everyone who watches porn. And given the inevitable tendency of everything that is put online to leak, that is incredibly scary and ill-advised.
And Sir Elton John says the new version of The Lion King was a huge disappointment. The star who wrote songs for the original film says they messed the music up in the remake. That's the latest. I'm Will Rowe.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker.
This is the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive.
Good afternoon, you're listening to the Posh Boys here on Love Sport Drive. You're with me, Johnny Burrow, Guy Watts, and our special guest this afternoon, Martin Allen, former West Ham midfielder and Brentford and Barnet boss. Your top stories this afternoon. David De Gea has given Ole Gunnar Solskjaer yet another injury worry. That's ahead of Manchester United's crucial Premier League game against Liverpool on Sunday. And sport and politics are mixing in Spain. Next weekend's El Clasico could be moved from the Nou Camp to the Bernabeu, with pro-independence protests planned in Catalonia. We're going to talk about this now. It's a very, very complex situation rooted in the Catalonian desire for independence. Catalonia currently is a kind of pseudo-partially independent state of Spain. They had a referendum back in 2017 on independence with a 43% voter turnout. 90% of Catalonians voted to become independent, that is, to break away from Spain. The Spanish government ruled the referendum was unlawful, and they've just jailed 9 of those separatist leaders leading to these protests. We're joined on the line by Will Folkes, who's a Madrid-based football writer. Good afternoon, Will. Thanks for joining us. Just give us a bit of the background here. Why is there so much tension in Catalonia?
Well, you gave a decent introduction there. I mean, it's a question of history, and I don't want to go into it too much, but I think you can tell from the recent events of 2 years ago with that election, and then, of course, on Monday was the sentencing of the politicians, so it's all coming back to a head and sort of bubbling up again after being on the surface for a couple of years. And unfortunately, but also rather excitingly, it's all coming to a head just 2 weeks before the first El Clasico of the season. So you have Real Madrid obviously representing, the Spanish state, very popularly supported all over the country, not just in Madrid, and really representing, the King and Franco, or, whatever you want to put in it. But the established state. And then you have Barcelona, the club, who are very closely tied with the region of Catalonia and the people there, and, have really been a figurehead of separatism. So, you've seen these flags about separatism, and then more recently about the imprisoned politicians at Barcelona games. And, the two clubs have come to really represent the two sides of the argument. So the fact that they're set to play each other a couple of weeks after this pretty massive ruling is a scary prospect, but also, a very interesting one.
I'm trying to reprogram my brain, Will, to hear separatists without immediately going to Star Wars. But is what you're suggesting that the two clubs are kind of going to come to stand for both sides of this? You've got the Catalonian independence, if you like, in Barcelona, and then the more Spanish royalists for Real Madrid.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, that's obviously a very simplified version, and there'll be people on both sides, but they have both come to stand really as figureheads of those two things. And, while people don't want to be reductive about these things, it's a very clear division between the two, and it's really just an extension of what's gone on for a long time. The rivalry between the two clubs is partly because they're the biggest and the best, but it always has been because they represent the two kinds of Spain. You have the kind of the centralist government in the middle in Madrid, but then actually Spain is really composed of all these small independent regions, Catalonia being one of the better known and richest and most popular. So it has kind of come to represent this duality of the Spanish state between having one central controlling government and having these different individual, very ancient regions with their own traditions and histories and football teams.
It really is fascinating. In terms of the fixture movement itself, we understand that the request has come from La Liga rather than either club. Would Barcelona be pleased with that decision? Because they'd be losing home advantage.
Well, the La Liga have made the request to the Spanish Football Federation, and the Spanish Football Federation will now speak to the two clubs and see what they want to do and decide. They have a kind of competition committee to decide what they should do. And, this is an incredibly developing story to the point that, I read one thing about it this morning, and then when I was asked to come on and speak about it now, I went and, in the last hour or two, there have been responses, not officially yet, but, the Spanish TV shows and radio shows which have connections in the clubs have already got, their leaked versions of what the clubs will say. So the initial proposal was to swap the fixtures round, so to play the one next week at the Bernabeu and the one in March, I think it's on March the 1st, in the Camp Nou instead. Well, first, Real Madrid, as you can imagine, they're not too keen on this. They basically don't want to do anything that will jeopardise their standing in the league, and why would they do their arch rivals a favour? So first of all, we heard from them that they're not keen in changing it, and while they will accept a change of date, they won't accept a change of location, because obviously Barcelona right now, the whole point of this is it's the centre of these protests, and there's been a lot going on. They blockaded the streets of the airport. Even Rakitic had to walk home from the airport. There were some rather funny photos of that, and it just doesn't seem like a very safe place to play a game. So one would think that at least Barcelona would be saying, we're not keen to play it either. But the most recent thing I've seen has said that Barcelona are also not keen on changing the venue or the date, and it's all rather unclear because their senior members of their board and so on are all at the Golden Boot Awards, showering Messi with more compliments. But it seems like neither club is particularly keen on getting the date or the venue changed. So as it stands, despite these crazy exceptional circumstances, and you've already got the Barcelona team bus having to take an out-of-the-way route to go to Eibar this weekend to avoid the planned protest, you might have a situation where, despite all this, both clubs are insisting that the game goes ahead as planned, which is going to create a real headache for La Liga and for the federation, you'd imagine.
Well, even taking all of that into account, and even if neither club wants to move it, surely, if the reality of the situation is that you've got riots in the streets of Barcelona, the lesser-known Smiths song, how can La Liga, the Spanish Football Federation, not just put their foots down and go, sorry, lads, we've got to do the safe thing here?
I think that's probably the case, and if there's any real concerns at all, then I think safety will definitely come first. At the moment, the quotes going around are more that people are worried about how it will be used as a loudspeaker, as the Spanish expression of how the people protesting might use this as a vehicle for all kinds of political stuff that neither the La Liga nor the Federation want to get wrapped up in. I think if it was ever going to become seriously dangerous for the players or the fans, then of course it would have to be changed. And at the moment, I guess it's down to both of the clubs to try and convince the Federation that it's going to be nothing more than a few pots and pans. Maybe Real Madrid will have to stay a little bit outside the city, or plan a little bit further ahead. But absolutely, if it becomes clear that anything major or dangerous is going on, then I don't think either club can really complain if the safety of the fans and the players is put first.
Will, thanks for your time and your expertise as well. Will Folks there, Madrid-based football writer, explaining the situation in Catalonia. It sounds very, very fraught. Surely not worth the risk of playing it in Barcelona, is it?
No, well, it sounds very serious, doesn't it, Will? It's what's happening over there. How are they going to resolve that? I wouldn't know how to resolve it, Johnny. What would they do?
I have absolutely no idea. At the point where the Spanish government have imprisoned 9 separatists for sentences ranging between 9 and 12 years, these are serious sentences, and a reasonable portion of Catalonian citizens feel that that is a gross injustice, it's hard to see how this goes away.
Is that why Pep Guardiola was wearing his yellow ribbon on his top?
And he got in a bit of trouble for that.
Yes, because he's a Catalan, isn't he?
He is. Right. He's Barca born and bred.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, and they want independence. Is that right?
They want independence, and it's actually very.
When do they want it?
Now, there is a very interesting footballing angle beyond just this game to Catalan football independence, which is if they split, who would play for Catalonia, who would play for Spain, because that glorious 2008, 2010, 2012 outfit, well, a lot of them were Barcelona, and Catalonia have played a few unofficial fixtures with the likes of Gerard Piqué, Xavi, Sergio Busquets turning out for them. So it's not the primary concern, of course, but the Spanish football team would take a hell of a hit.
It would be an interesting subplot, wouldn't it? And one of the other subplots, as Will referred to, which I think is really interesting, it's kind of ironic as well, that La Liga, by moving this game, or even just trying to move it, as you mentioned, Johnny, they've requested that the game be moved. They are bringing so much more attention, not just to people in Spain, but because of the nature of this game and these two clubs, to football fans around the world, which also means people around the world, of what this cause is all about. I bet that the three of us sitting here know a little bit more about the Catalan independence campaign, for example, than we did a few hours ago, even, or when we woke up this morning. And likewise, over the next 10 days, the time between now and when the game is played, wherever that happens, I feel like that's only going to grow. And La Liga, obviously, are the Spanish football league body, and they, in principle, will not want Catalonia to have independence. They want it to remain part of Spain. And so there is this irony there, and I think that makes it a little bit more intriguing for those of us watching from afar who aren't emotionally invested. I know it is an extremely sensitive, emotive issue. I'm not belittling that, but you can't help but find it a little bit more intriguing because of that sort of subplot and irony to it.
And, of course, we are potentially going to have another subplot because they've arrested 9 separatists. They've fined a further 3. But the man who was in charge of Catalonia when they had that first referendum back in 2017 was Carles Puigdemont, he was the head of the government of Catalonia. He is currently effectively living in exile in Belgium, and I suspect the Spanish government would rather like to arrest him. If they do that, he, at the time, you remember, Guy, was a figurehead. He was the face that we all knew as the guy pushing this forward. He'd be a big scalp for the Spanish government, and he would be a huge flashpoint for these Catalonian protesters as well.
Certainly would. If that were to happen, that would be a pretty big deal. We've got, of course, loads of rugby to talk about today as well. A big rivalry. It's not quite as fierce, perhaps, as Real Madrid and Barcelona, but England and Australia is never far behind. We're talking very shortly to Will Fraser, the former Saracens flanker, about his old clubmate, Billy Vunipola. Is he going to be fit? Is he going to be at his best for that game on Saturday? And talking about all the Aussies in the England camp. We're going to be getting Martin's thoughts on that in a moment as well. Stay with us.
Love sport.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. Brexit will bring changes that affect businesses in many ways, particularly if you buy from EU suppliers, sell to EU customers, provide services to EU clients, and receive customer data from other businesses in the EU. Businesses need to prepare. Find out how at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
I'm Leslie from North Essex. I couldn't believe that after 5 minutes I'd saved over £900 on my energy bills. When my car insurance was then due for renewal, I went back to a spokesman said and reduced my premium by over £500. I thought that my home insurance was expensive. When I shopped around on a spokesman said, I saved a staggering £1,100. I've saved £2,500. I cannot believe it was that easy.
A spokesmansaid.com, fighting for you, saving you money.
Cancer. It can affect anyone. And when it does, Macmillan are right there to support them. From the moment of diagnosis, we offer physical, financial, and emotional support. And it's your donations that make it possible. So we can be on the phone, in hospitals, running support centers, and ready to help people deal with the fallout. We are funded by you, the public. So please give what you can at macmillan.org.uk. Macmillan Cancer Support. Right there with you.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it, sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
I believe in reincarnation. I've left everything in my will to me.
This is Love Sport.
Martin Allen was absolutely buzzing for England versus Australia, the big Rugby World Cup quarter-final. It's this Saturday, and he couldn't wait for it until I told him it kicked off at 8:15, and there was a slight, when? But you're going to be there, aren't
but
you?
a lot of the games have been around about 9:15, so, everyone puts these games on, but we never kind of find out when the kickoff is. So it's 8:15 Saturday morning.
It is.
My next door neighbours are Australian.
They've got their dog Digger. Is he going to be watching it?
It's not Digger. It's Digger.
Digger.
Oh, Digger, come on. Shut up, Digger. Stop barking. Digger, stop barking.
You're going to annoy that grumpy footballer next door again. He'll talk about you on the radio.
It'll be raining and cold and grey Saturday morning, and they'll be out the back in their shorts with a shrimp on the barbie, all that sort of stuff. Cooking a barbie. They have barbecues every day. They have always having a barbecue, my neighbours.
Martin, how much would it mean to you for England to beat Australia in a Rugby World Cup again?
Johnny, it's just part of the process of us going on to win the World Cup tournament. I can see the All Blacks in the final taking on Eddie's boys, and a lot's been mentioned about half of his staff are Australian. I don't care. All I care about is that we beat Australia, dismantle them, and then get ready then for the next one. Who are we going to have in the semi-final?
It would be New Zealand.
Would it?
Or Ireland if they can get a really big result.
Can't see that, can you?
Not really. It's interesting, this Australian infiltration of the England setup. I haven't seen that much complaint about it from the English point of view. But when you factor in, we've got an Aussie coach in Eddie Jones, we've got an Aussie attack coach in Scott Wisemantle, and now we've got Aussie Rugby League legend Ricky Stewart in the camp this week to boot. Various members of the Australian setup, not least their head coach, aren't that happy about it. We're joined on the line by Will Fraser, the former Saracens flanker. Good afternoon, Will. Thanks for joining us. What's your take on this? Is it a good thing to have Australians in the fold?
Well, you'd have to say yes for the time being because we're going good guns. So it looks like it's working, whatever they're doing. I think it's obviously Eddie being Australian, knowing a lot about a lot of influential Australians makes sense why he's bringing them in. But I think probably foremost they're just very good at what they do. I think that's probably the main reason he's brought them in. They're obviously very influential people, very good at the roles they're delivering with the squad, and the fact they're Australian is probably a secondary thing really. But they're obviously whatever they're doing is obviously working, so I'm not complaining.
What are the potential advantages of having Ricky Stewart, this Aussie Rugby League legend, in the fold?
Well, I'd say from someone that used to rugby union, rugby league men are notoriously a lot harder than us. So he's probably bringing a bit of toughness, a bit of hardness to it. But equally, rugby league, there's so much to learn from rugby league as a sport in terms of how they attack, how they defend, little nuances that we can bring in across into union. And I think you see a lot of that in the way we attack, particularly on first phase. There's lots of stuff out the back. There's lots of hard runners, lots of dummy lines, which is kind of league through and through. So I think, again, as I say, whatever they're doing is obviously working, so long may it continue.
And what about old Billy Vinapola, that good old Englishman? Is he going to be fit?
I hope so.
Is he that good? Tell me.
Yeah, he's one of the best in the world, if not the best in the world.
Is he?
Yeah. I mean, just the sheer size of the man. I mean, unfortunately, I never really had to play against him, which probably would have ended my career even sooner if I did have to play against him. He's a beast of a man. He's extremely fit now. He's strong. He's got hands like an outside centre. Not that he does it in the game, but I can tell you from training with him, he's actually very good at kicking as well. So he's the full pack really. And I think for how England play, obviously Mako coming back into the fold helps us out a lot as well. But I think having him to chuck the ball to and just have some guaranteed front foot ball getting over the game line, I think is absolutely invaluable, and it's something that not a lot of teams really have.
But Vunipola hasn't actually been at his best. Are we better off just accepting that actually he isn't as crucial as he looks on paper?
No, I wholeheartedly disagree with that. Billy, whether he's on top form or not on top form, is still a huge asset to any team. And I think if you walked into any camp at the moment out of any of the quarterfinalists and you said, would you take Billy Vunipola regardless of form, I think they'd bite both your hands off for him. He might not have been absolutely on top form, but he's still been one of our most influential players this World Cup, without a doubt. If you look at probably the amount of carries he's had per game, the impact he's had per game, I think we're a poorer side without him, to be honest.
That Australian manager, what's his name? Checker.
Checker. Yeah.
He seems to get antagonised by Eddie Jones's little grin and little smarmy comments. Has Eddie always got underneath him and riled him?
Well, my honest answer is I'm not sure. I know there's a bit of history between them, but I think from the outside looking in, Michael Check is the sort of character that maybe it's wound up quite easy, but equally I think he plays up to it for the press. I think him and Eddie both know how to manage the press in the ways they want to, and they react in certain ways, I think, to get certain reactions from everyone else. So I wouldn't read too much into that kind of relationship.
Yeah, the only thing is it springs out is in the 6 games that Australia have played against England, Eddie's beaten Australia and Chucker 6 times out of 6. That's good, isn't it?
It bodes well.
Oh, it does, doesn't it?
It definitely bodes well, and I'm praying it's 7 out of 7.
Yeah.
Come Saturday afternoon. But listen, I think in my personal opinion, I'm a bit gutted we didn't play the French game.
Yeah.
That got cancelled. I just think we haven't really been properly tested yet, and Australia is going to be a real test. Regardless of kind of the record as it stands at the moment, regardless of their form. Australia in a World Cup quarter-final against England is going to be a hard old game. So.
And what's your view on the 2-week break? Is that poor for performance, or could they have done it back to back, week to week? How does that work in rugby?
I think if it were me and I was in camp, I would rather have played the game. I think it's good to build momentum. It's good to get the minutes under your belt. I'm sure they would have mimicked the game in training to make up for the fact they didn't play. But then you can also argue the opposite. They've had a really intense World Cup camp, intense World Cup warm-up games. They've had 3 games now on the trot, so you could also argue the extra week break will only serve them well in terms of the recovery. So it's one of those ones where you can argue both sides of the coin. So we'll find it's one of those ones we'll only really know come the result of the game on Saturday.
Well, what kind of game are you expecting between England and Australia?
I think you've got 2 teams that like to run the ball. I think you look kind of how England play at the moment. First phase attack is got to be up there with one of the best in the world. They like to give it a go, like to run the ball. Australia the same. They've got a really good back line. They've got a back row that are very good ball handlers, and are very good in the breakdown. So I think it's going to be. I think the ball in hand is going to be ball in hand for a lot of the game. I don't think there'll be too much kicking. I think the breakdown is going to be crucial. You've got Hooper, Pocock, obviously whether or not Billy's playing is good in the breakdown, but then Curry and Underhill. So it's kind of a battle of the 4 flankers really for me. And being a flanker, obviously I'm going to say that, but I think the breakdown is going to be vital. I think whoever wins that battle goes a long way to winning the game.
Who would you pick at 10? Would you go for Ford or would you go for your old teammate Farrell?
Well, I'm always going to be extremely biased in this. Personally, I'd pick Owen, but having said that, Ford at 10 and Owen at 12 has actually worked pretty well this World Cup so far. So I think going into a quarter-final, you don't want to be making fundamental changes to your team unless you have to. So although I probably would have started with Owen at 10, I think going into this game, I think you've got to keep it as Ford at 10 and Farrell at 12.
Well, our Rugby World Cup quarter-finalists for 2019, I feel like I'm on the X Factor, are England versus Australia, Ireland versus New Zealand, Wales versus France, and Japan versus South Africa. As far as you're concerned, who are the 4 semi-finalists going to be?
So we're going to play New Zealand in our semi-final, I think.
We're going to beat them.
We're going to beat them. We're
on! You're the man!
We're going to beat all 3 Southern Hemisphere teams to win the World Cup. Australia in the quarter, New Zealand in the semi, South Africa in the final.
Okay, so hang on. Who are the other semi-finalists?
So I think, and from talking to people around me, it's slightly controversial, I think France could do Wales. I don't think Wales have made a semi-final in the World Cup, whereas France, I think, have been there nearly every World Cup. They're just dangerous in these situations. They can pull a rabbit out of a hat. You just don't know what's coming. So I just have there's no rugby evidence really. It's just a gut feeling. I just think France might do it. And I think South Africa will beat Japan. I think Japan will be a tight game for 50, 60 minutes. But I think last week when Japan was almost like their World Cup final. And I just think maybe this is one step too far. But I hope I'm proved wrong on that one. But my head tells me South Africa will win that game.
Time to exercise some demons for them. Will, it's been absolutely lovely speaking to you. Thanks for your time.
Likewise.
And your positivity as well. I rate that. We're going to get the Australians first. We're going to get the Kiwis second. We're going to batter them all, and we're going to win the World Cup. Will Fraser there, former Saracens flanker and clearly proud English rugby fan. 8:15 in the morning. That is early, isn't it, to watch England in the World Cup?
Of course it's not early.
Not
What's up with your boy?
I'm not saying it's early to get out of bed, but...
What's it, back to university days? Get up at 10.
Pathetic.
Stroll down at the local cafe for a full English.
It's part of a
major
tournament.
Get in the shower. Get on the edge of that sofa.
Obscure time zones and bizarre waking hours. That's how you demonstrate your commitment.
You cannot reasonably have a beer and a packet of cheese and onion crisps.
Who says?
At 8:15 a.m. Who says? Guy Watts is going to be in the pub.
Completely wrong. I'm actually going to be in an as yet unknown Eastern European city, which is thankfully going to be 1 hour closer.
Sorry, as yet unknown.
I'm on a mystery tour.
Right, so you bought...
I'm actually a mystery...
We've got to do this later in the show. You bought a ticket to go to a nation, but you don't know what that nation is.
Yeah, I've had flights bought for me. I'm on a mystery tour, and I'm a mystery guest on said tour.
Are you getting married?
No, God, I hope not. That would be a hell of a surprise, wouldn't it? I've got a group of friends who are going on a football tour for their five-a-side team. The organiser decided to spice things up a little bit and add in a few wild cards, and I am one of those surprise guests, and I've not been allowed to know where we're going either. So I'm turning up at the airport. I've had flights. Well, I think I've had flights bought for me and accommodation booked. Apparently I have. I've paid some money for it. And I tell you what, that'd be a good prank, wouldn't it? You get to the airport. Oh, no, you're not really on it, mate. But no, in theory I am. And it's apparently 1 hour closer, or they're an hour ahead of the UK, so that gives me a small clue. It narrows it down to nearly every country in Europe, and that's going to be 1 hour closer to Japan, so I'll have a 9:15 kickoff.
Oh, lovely.
And I think that's definitely legit.
Are
for a
you
beer
all
and a
watching
packet
it?
of
Is it a stag do?
No, it's not a stag do, but we'll be watching the rugby, of course.
Yeah.
What
Just
a weekend!
a lads trip.
Yeah, I think it's about 12, maybe up 15, so something like that.
Are you going to be allowed to play for the five-a-side team? I
don't think there's any football being played, Johnny. No. It's just like,
they're going to play football matches.
Well, he said
this lad's going away.
That's
because he's been at Cambridge and he don't know about all that sort of stuff.
Lies and slander. He said...
What, you weren't at Cambridge?
Well, he said it's a five-a-side football tour. Call me old-fashioned. I thought they might be playing a game.
I went on an 11-a-side tour earlier this year as well, and there were 3 people left in charge of organising it. One guy was given in charge of organising a game. One guy was given the non-bar crawl activities, and we had no game, and the only activity we did was the bar crawl. The other bloke had done absolutely everything. The other 2 were completely useless.
Love that.
And it's one of those other blokes, actually, who's done this tour. So
well,
I was expecting absolutely nothing to happen, but we do at least have 4 absolutely brilliant games of rugby, I think, to be played. I genuinely think they are all going to be worth watching. There's no sort of foregone conclusions there. Of all the teams that New Zealand could play, they're playing the team that's beaten them twice in the last couple of years in Ireland. I think Wales...
Have Ireland beaten them twice?
They've beaten them twice. 2016 they beat them in Chicago, and then last year they beat them in Dublin for the first time ever.
In Chicago? What was they doing playing in Chicago?
They're playing out there. Ireland have played a couple of games out there. They've got a big Irish fan base out there, trying to grow the game of rugby in the USA. Probably paid a good bit of money to go out there. And yeah, they played New Zealand. The first time they ever beat New Zealand was out in Chicago.
Wow.
Brilliant game it was. And that was a couple of years ago. Last year in Dublin, that famous night, I think 16-6, 16-9, something like that. Absolutely brilliant game. And Ireland have dipped since then. But if there's one game you're going to be up for, World Cup quarter-final against New Zealand. Remember, Ireland have never won a game of knockout rugby at the Rugby World Cup. So what a way to get a first win that would be. And that would mean that England were to play Ireland if/when we beat Australia. We've won 6 in a row against them under Eddie Jones.
It's an exciting weekend then, isn't it?
It is a massive exciting
weekend. And all
weekend.
the Premier League games on as well this weekend.
Man United, Liverpool, 4:30 on Sunday.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yes, please. Looking forward to it. Cannot wait.
4:30, that's more your start time, is it? Getting out of bed, crawling downstairs, laying on the sofa, pyjamas on all day, toasted sandwich and a cup of tea.
To be fair, I was preparing my response, and the more you said, the more appealing that started to sound. Tell you what, I'll wake up and watch the highlights.
Love sport.
Cancer. It can affect anyone. And when it does, Macmillan are right there to support them. From the moment of diagnosis, we offer physical, financial, and emotional support. And it's your donations that make it possible. So we can be on the phone, in hospitals, running support centres, and ready to help people deal with the fallout. We are funded by you, the public. So please give what you can at macmillan.org.uk. Macmillan Cancer Support, right there with you.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it, sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Are you paying way too much for your energy bills? A spokesman said could help you save big money. With electricity costs continuing to rise, you could save hundreds of pounds by shopping around. Just go to aspokesmansaid.com and look for the very best value energy deals on the market. Don't waste your hard-earned cash. You could be on a much cheaper deal. Go to aspokesmansaid.com.
Fighting for you, saving you money.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. This means that travelling to the EU will change. You'll need to check online if your passport is valid for travel to Europe. If you're planning on driving, you'll need to check if you have the right documents to drive. And make sure your travel insurance covers all your healthcare needs. To keep your trip on track, check what you need to do at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
This is Love Sport.
Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive. You're with me, Johnny Burrow, Guy Watts, and special guest Martin Allen. And Guy has all your latest sporting headlines.
Bulgarian police have now arrested 6 people for making racist gestures during Monday's Euro 2020 qualifier with England. 9 others are being investigated. The match was stopped twice after some of the home supporters directed monkey chants at England's black players in Sofia. Gareth Southgate's team won the match 6-0. La Liga have asked for this month's meeting between Barcelona and Real Madrid to be moved due to protests in Catalonia. The Spanish top flight want the El Clasico match switched to Madrid, with Barcelona then playing at home in March next year. 9 Catalan separatist leaders were jailed on Monday for their part in a failed bid for independence. And it's understood Alexis Sanchez will be out for the next 3 months with an ankle injury. Sky in Italy are reporting the winger will need an operation after picking up the problem on international duty with Chile. He's on loan at Inter Milan, of course, from Manchester United, meaning that Man United are now paying a bloke about 200 grand a week to be injured at a club on another part of the continent. Completely baffling situation that they have ended up in there. We're also going to be speaking, by the way, to New Zealand Rugby League legend Robbie Hunter-Poole a little bit after 5 o'clock. He's going to tell us a bit more about exactly what Ricky Stewart, the Aussie Rugby League legend, is going to be bringing to the England camp ahead of the quarterfinal against Australia this week. And just in a moment's time, we're going to be speaking to Martin Gould, the professional snooker player, all about what the K2 Leisure Centre in Crawley is really like.
This is Love Sport.
Cancer. It can affect anyone. And when it does, Macmillan are right there to support them. From the moment of diagnosis, we offer physical, financial, and emotional support. And it's your donations that make it possible. So we can be on the phone, in hospitals, running support centres, and ready to help people deal with the fallout. We are funded by you, the public. So please give what you can at macmillan.org.uk. Macmillan Cancer Support, right there with you.
Love Sport.
We've all been there. You pick a fight with someone, or you pick a fight with a place, and maybe, you've got a bit amped up on a night out and you say something you shouldn't say, and you've then got an option the next time you see them. You can apologise, you can take it all back, you can move forward, or you can double down. And that is the approach that Ronnie O'Sullivan has well and truly gone for in his little feud with the good people of Crawley and the K2 Leisure Centre last year. So last year, he wasn't just content with calling it a hellhole and suggesting that parts of the K2 smell of urine. He's doubled down this year, saying every day in Crawley is a day lost in my life. We are joined on the line by Martin Gould, who's a professional snooker player who actually played at the K2 Leisure Centre in Crawley earlier this week. Martin, thank you for joining us. The first question is a simple one. Does it smell of wee?
Good afternoon, gents. No, it doesn't. No. To be honest with you, I don't really know what his problem is with the venue itself. If anything, I think the venue is one of the best that we play at for the setup and everything. I suppose his grind is probably the fact that there is nothing in and around it. So you have to go for a drive for a couple of miles if you want to go and get some proper decent food and just to get away for a bit. But it's very similar to any other venue that we play at, to be honest. Don't really have that much in and around the place. So
he seems to be at odds with the tour organisers. He always seems to be jabbing away and never happy, and always sort of digging away, trying to find arguments and rows. And as such a champion, it's disappointing, really, for the outsiders looking in, how he keeps discrediting people, and, of course, the town of Crawley.
Yeah, it is. But I think that it's just his way of... I think he enjoys the attention. So if his snooker's not great or somebody's done something that can outshine him, it's his way of finding a way of taking away that moment of glory from that person. He's done it on many occasions to other players in the past that have won tournaments. He's come out and made announcements that he's not playing the game anymore, or he's taking a year off. So I think it's just more of a cry for attention more than anything, in my honest opinion.
Yeah.
Well, when we're talking about Ronnie discrediting other people, he's been very critical of the decision to pair him with a certain Mr. O'Neill, who's ranked 105 in the world. He said he doesn't like playing lower-ranked players because every time he tries to have a plan, they play the wrong shot. Whatever game plan you've got, they just totally throw it out of the window. Ronnie said it's like following a driver who doesn't know what they're doing. You're just trying to second guess it and you end up having a crash yourself. Now, looking at that from the outside as someone who's not involved with snooker, I thought that was a shameful thing to say about a fellow professional. But what's your view?
Yeah, that is very disrespectful. We're all snooker pros. We've earned the right to call ourselves professional to play in these events. We don't all play the game. We don't all see it the same way. We don't all play it the same way. If we did, then it would be rather boring because you'd just be seeing the same thing over and over again, and over and over and over again. Everyone sees things differently. I've known Jamie for quite some time. He disappeared off the scene for a few years, and he's got himself back on. And whatever he has to do, he's trying to earn a living for himself. So he's got to do what he feels is correct when he's playing at the table. He's not hardly going to play into Ronnie's hands and sort of just open the game up and say, there you go, Ronnie, there you go, make 4 centuries and let me just sit here and watch.
It's with yourself playing against someone like that after he's made those types of comments. How do the rest of you lads feel? We all know how brilliant he is. He's a brilliant player, isn't he? But when he's so disrespectful, how do you all feel? Like, well, you must have a lot of tea lounge or where you bump into each other at the hotels or you're having a beer together and he walks in. Do you all kind of get in with him and have a laugh with him, or is he just like totally on his own and walks away from all of you?
He's more or less always on his own. We hardly ever see him. The only time you might see him is when he's doing his punditry for TV, or if he's in the practice room, just happening to be getting ready to play a match. You might catch him for 5 minutes before that. You never see him in the same hotel as you. He's never in the same hotel as us. He's always locked away somewhere. He does keep himself very much to himself, like a majority of us do, but he does it to an extent where literally you don't see him until sort of 5-10 minutes before match time. So most of us as players, it's very rare that we sit just between ourselves and have a discussion about what Ronnie said. We just, at the end of the day, we've got so used to the nonsense sometimes that comes out of him that we just take it with a pinch of salt and just ignore it now.
Well, that sounds like Ronnie O'Sullivan, man of the people. Just finally, Martin, he said he's going to play 80% of his competitions in China from now on. Now, if I were being cynical, I'd say there's a fairly obvious motivation for that. But from your experience, what's playing in China actually like?
For him to come out and say that is quite strange, to be honest, because he hates the place. Well, he used to hate the place. It's very similar to playing, shall we say, in Crawley. It's basically you're not going to be doing anything in between times because you're more often than not going to be sleeping at weird times, eating at weird times. You literally, all you do in China is just relax in your hotel room, drink a cup of tea, cup of coffee, and just relax. You don't really do anything. So when I heard that he was playing quite a few events in China, I was very, very surprised because for the last few years, he'd probably only go to 1 or 2 places in China in over the season. So for him to make that announcement, he's either getting a good wedge from whoever's doing the tournament, or he just obviously feels like he wants a complete change, which he tends to do quite regularly. He changes his mind probably more often than what most people change socks.
Martin, great to speak to you. Very illuminating, mate. Thanks for your time. Martin Gould there, who is a professional snooker player, giving, I think it has to be said, quite a candid take on Ronnie O'Sullivan.
Not very favourable, Johnny, was it?
Well, to be fair on Martin, he was at no point critical. He just said what Ronnie does, and I think it's telling that we had someone there not passing judgment in any way, not saying what he thinks about Ronnie as a bloke, just saying how the guy operates, and we've both come away from it thinking, that doesn't sound good.
No, he's going to China for the money. We worked out with Guy, our producer, the other day how much the prize money for the 3 big tournaments in Japan, and I think I'm stand to be corrected, Guy. Did it come to something like 2.7 million? So you'd think, well, I'm not so much sure it's about Crawley not being a nice place to be at.
Yeah, well, the Crawley event, the English Open, that prize money, total pot, 400 grand, and most of those ones in China were in the 750 to 800 grand mark. And yeah, obviously that's going to be a factor. You know, you can't be so naive to pretend it's not. Nick Metcalf's a journalist. The other day he said he's got a TV series or something coming out, doesn't he, Ronnie? And obviously that's going to be part of it. We can all plug things in our time. That's completely fair enough. But it's so see-through, isn't it? When he's spoken in the past about how much he resents the notion of having to go to China so much, doesn't like the travelling, and then, going to play 80% of my events in China. It's just classic Ronnie O'Sullivan. What I'd say, Johnny, and I think you're right to point out that Martin wasn't critical of Ronnie for the way that he keeps himself to himself and stuff. I think we as fans have an image, an idea of Ronnie O'Sullivan, and we have the image of him as a performer on the snooker table. Of course, he's probably the best there's ever been to watch, but also off it with what he says, it kind of lights the sport up a little bit, gets it more column inches and all the rest of it. But he doesn't have an obligation to be that kind of person the entire time. And actually, like with a lot of people who quite like performing, they're not actually that same charismatic person when they don't have that platform to do so.
In private,
you're a very different person. I think that is the sort of thing that, we're getting a clearer idea of what Ronnie O'Sullivan, the person, is, as opposed to Ronnie O'Sullivan, the snooker player, and Ronnie O'Sullivan, the media performer, if you like. He's a different person when he goes in front of a camera, whether it's to play snooker or give an interview.
Well, Guy, you and Martin know exactly what happens every time the microphones go off here on Posh Boys on Drive.
Can't get a word out, can we?
No, me. Am I even remotely the same? I'll just walk out. I don't want to talk to you two in the break.
Hey, guess what? I saw a boy, aged 14, at Ilford Snooker Club score 100. He was 14. I was playing on a table with Kevin Keane, a right winger from West Ham.
Yeah.
We'd finished training, had lunch, and we quickly stopped off at Ilford Snooker Club on our way home to West London where we lived. We just had a random game of snooker. And this kid playing on the next table was like, oh my God. He was good and so quick going around the table. We stopped our game. Mid-afternoon, so he's probably bunking off school. He looked across. Who's that? Oh my God. And the bloke who run the club, he knew us because obviously we played for West Ham at the time. He said, that is Ronnie O'Sullivan. Keep an eye on him. And he was just racking up 100, non-stop. It was amazing.
Incredible.
And so fast, Guy. You know, when they virtually running around the table, and it was just like bang, 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 bang. And it was like, oh my God, it was unbelievable.
Well, I fully accept I'm a loser, but one of my favourite videos to watch on YouTube is 5 minute 147. It's never been, not just never been done.
What
it's
is
never
that?
come
What
close.
do you do?
5 minutes and 20 seconds, 5 minutes, 15 seconds, something like that, at 147. A complete clearance, 15 reds, 15 blacks in every colour. It will never be repeated. I think it was at 2001, something like that, 2001 World Championship.
In a tournament?
Yeah, in a tournament, not in practice. Absolutely incredible. No one will ever do that ever again. And remember, you saw him at 14 years old. He won the UK Championship, one of the Triple Crown events. It would have been just 3 years later, 1993, I think it was, when he won, 92 possibly. That's how long this guy's been around. You forget that he's been winning big tournaments. He'd be 43, 44 years old. This was 1992, 1993 that he won the UK Championship. So you would have seen him just a couple of years before. And he looked that good, Martin, because he was. He's a special talent, and he's sort of a special person, but it doesn't necessarily mean that he is the person we all want him to be in our minds, if you like, off the snooker table.
Yeah. Well, brilliant people, be it sporting, be it intellectual, be it whatever, quite often are difficult. You know, you hear about some brilliant people who are genuinely lovely, but there are also some where you just think, actually, part of being that extraordinary is that you are a fairly complicated bloke.
What are you trying to say, Johnny?
Well, Martin, you are, of course, one of the exceptions where you are both brilliant and delightful. Our question coming up is, can we say the same of Mo Salah?
Giving your team the coverage they deserve. Love Sport Radio.
You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage.
Tenna men. Pants and pads.
You're
discreet. Masculine.
You're right.
Secure absorption zone. Buy online or in shops.
You're in.
Tenna men. Keep control.
Urine?
No.
Don't get caught out in the great energy price hike as large firms look to charge you more. If you want to save money on your energy bills, it's not too late to see what's on the market. With rising gas and electricity bills, don't get caught out wasting your money on expensive tariffs. A spokesman said will show you the very best value deals available. Check out aspokesmansaid.com and you could be using your savings to put towards a well-earned holiday.
With aspokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Cancer. It can affect anyone. And when it does, Macmillan are right there to support them. From the moment of diagnosis, we offer physical, financial, and emotional support. And it's your donations that make it possible. So we can be on the phone, in hospitals, running support centres, and ready to help people deal with the fallout. We are funded by you, the public. So please give what you can at macmillan.org.uk. Macmillan Cancer Support, right there with you.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. Brexit will bring changes that affect businesses in many ways, particularly if you buy from EU suppliers, sell to EU customers, provide services to EU clients, and receive customer data from other businesses in the EU. Businesses need to prepare. Find out how at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
I am a god in Scotland. They've never seen anyone live to 70.
This is Love Sport.
Football fans aren't particularly happy with the game's biggest broadcasters this week. The TV selections from Sky Sports and BT Sport for December and January were due to be published earlier this month, but they haven't been, and as yet, they're currently 5 days late, with no sign that they're coming particularly soon. Now, this isn't just about when they're going to be on telly, if they're going to be on telly. It affects the kickoff times. In turn, Martin, that affects the trains that fans have got to book. These are people with lives outside of football for whom going to support their team, say on Boxing Day, is a massively significant part of that Christmas tradition. And they're basically being messed with. We've had no explanation from Sky, no explanation from BT, no apology either. What's going on? Have they got some excuse, or actually have they just not really been bothered?
I wonder, obviously I don't know the answer, but I wonder if they're waiting as long and late as possible so they can match up the games for the very top of the Premier League to be broadcast over the holiday period to get the biggest games. That can be the only way, I'm thinking, Johnny, that they want to do it to get the most figures.
Yeah.
It can only be, can't it? But that is no good for the fan, is it, on the street?
Well, it's not at all. The Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust, for example, have issued a statement saying the Christmas and New Year set of picks is the most important of the lot to fans, who also have lives outside of football, and the disregard shown by not only running almost a week late, but by the radio silence from the Premier League is astonishing, even in this day and age. Other clubs piling in. Chris Johnson of the Burnley Supporters Trust says the attitude of Sky towards supporters is totally deplorable. And Newcastle, of course, are being Newcastle, bemoaning the fact that they live in the middle of nowhere and so it's expensive anyway, which is actually a very fair point. What do we think is going on? Is there an element here of Sky wanting to wait on some big decisions? For example, if Ole Gunnar Solskjaer does get sacked on Sunday, if Manchester United get battered by Liverpool and he gets sacked, United games are going to be less high tension than they otherwise would be. If there's going to be a game around Christmas featuring United for which Solskjaer's job is on the line, Sky and BT are going to want that on telly. But surely the rules have to be more strict, and obviously fans are going to target Sky and BT for criticism, and it's quite right that they should. But shouldn't we also be holding the Premier League to account here? Because they should be going to the broadcasters and saying, listen, lads, you've got a deadline for this. We've got to make our decisions. Fans have to make their plans. Get on with it. Is this just a case of money being able to basically dictate terms?
Well, I'm sure they must have good reason, Johnny. They must have something in their plans to make it the best broadcasting of the biggest and the best games that we all want to see over the Christmas period. So there must be something more to it. It would prove to be difficult to the fans. Does it make a difference if it's 4 or 5 days later? Does it make much difference?
It will do to train price, for example.
Train prices and scheduling, I suppose. Yeah, I can see where they're coming from.
And
I'm sure they'll be out soon, and everybody will be happy. But if it's the Newcastle fans that are moaning about it, that's nothing new, is it?
Well, we are joined in the studio by Love Sports' Dom Betts. Now, Dom is a big part of the Fulhamish podcast, and because of his slightly masochistic tendencies, he's decided to follow Fulham home and away. A bizarre decision, but one which you stick to very, very strictly. How is this delay disrupting your plans?
Well, this sort of delay is bad because often the time this happens is around Christmas, when it's not just people making travel plans. You've got people at different universities around the country going back to their hometowns for the Christmas period. We played Newcastle, I think, on the 19th or 20th of December last season. You know, that could have got moved to, I don't know, Friday night, Sunday, because at that point it was probably like a relegation 6-pointer at the time, and we can book until a month, 6 weeks before the game. And pretty much it was not even an advance tickets, it was obviously the cheaper ones which go on sale for a specific train. So it does affect them that way. But it's not just waiting for the trains. People will base their Christmas plans around when their team is playing. And if you don't know when they're playing, you don't know when to organise which family to see and when. But I think what the big problem here is, it isn't actually, I think something that would help this is if the 3 to 5 o'clock watershed on TV was gotten rid of. I don't think it would affect attendances at games, because fans who are going to go to games will go to games regardless of who plays. I say it's going to affect non-league, but most people who watch non-league football despise everything that the Premier League is. So I think that would be the way of getting around it, because then you can still show the games live. I know you can show it on foreign TV channels, but if you could show like the Man City, Liverpool, or United, Liverpool, or whoever at 3 o'clock on a Saturday, but live on TV, you'd negate all these problems, because then every team wouldn't have to worry when their game's going to be moved.
So, Dom, if it's just another week or so, because we're in mid-October now, I don't know about you, but is it really Christmas yet?
Well, it's
mid-October.
So Christmas...
Can't you wait another week or 2 weeks?
So
big deal.
The Christmas trains will pretty much be getting released right now for the advance tickets.
Have they been released?
Yeah, so it depends what train company it's with. Certain are 8 weeks, certain are 6 weeks. It really varies. But obviously football fans want to get the cheapest possible train tickets possible if they're going across the country, especially if you're Newcastle. I think the teams who do get done by most of this is actually not the Premier League team. I think the worst team for this is Plymouth. I know they're in League 1 or League 2, but let's say their game could get moved for TV, for example. They're nowhere near any other team. But again, a team like Newcastle, when you are so separated from the rest, it always makes it a lot difficult. Because if you're a London team in the Premier League, it isn't too hard. The majority of the teams, you'd argue, are down south within that region. And if, let's say, our London team's only got to go to Brighton, that's not too bad, because, the trains don't really alter in price. So when you're getting a train 2 or 3 hours, it really does affect it. And again, I think it's just around Christmas time, you want to get your plans sorted early as possible, because the last thing you want to be around Christmas is hectic and what you're doing and what you're doing on each day.
But you don't want to be like your stressed auntie, do you? You know what I mean? Coming into Christmas, what time we leaving? Have you got their presents? Have you packed the tree? Blah, 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 blah. A million little things to do around Christmas. We've all got them, and take a step back. And when the fixtures come out, book your train. See you later. On you go.
Well, Dom, great to talk to you. Thank you for your time. I will be writing to Father Christmas on your behalf, wishing for a win for Fulham around the Christmas period. Dom Betts there of the Fulhamish podcast. Martin.
Well, we haven't asked him about Fulham. All he talks about is Fulham.
He's a passionate man. He's passionate about organisation. He's passionate about trains, and he's really fun at parties.
Well, hopefully later on we can get him back because he knows everything about Fulham. And after their relegation last year from the Premier League, I was wondering if he thinks they can get back up on the first turn, which would be a great achievement for Scott Parker.
It would indeed. And also, Dom was out there in Bulgaria. He was in that stadium in Sofia where all of the racism was taking place. So we could get his thoughts on that. But for now, it's the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive with Johnny Burrow, Guy Watts and the Grinch, who hates Christmas, apparently, Martin Allen. Lots more to come.
Love Sport.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it, sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Don't get caught out by rising energy bills this year. Leading price comparison site A Spokesman Said can help you save money in just minutes. Plus, sign up to A Spokesman Said to get the latest super cheap collective energy deals. These offers are such great value, they aren't even available direct from the energy companies. Savvy customers have saved over £10 million from collective energy deals. Go to aspokesmansaid.com and you could be saving big money on your bills.
With aspokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Cancer. It can affect anyone. And when it does, Macmillan are right there to support them. From the moment of diagnosis, we offer physical, financial, and emotional support. And it's your donations that make it possible. So we can be on the phone, in hospitals, running support centres, and ready to help people deal with the fallout. We are funded by you, the public. So please give what you can at macmillan.org.uk. Macmillan Cancer Support, right there with you.
How are you? How are you really? Modern life can be busy, and sometimes it's easier to look after others before looking after yourself. But there's only one you. And making small changes to your lifestyle now could improve your chances of staying healthier longer. So take the first step to a healthier you with our free How Are You quiz. See how you score and get personalised tips and support. From how to eat a little healthier to turning a 10-minute walk into exercise. Just search One You.
Well, here on Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive, we're finding out about Martin Allen's Christmas traditions. And I have to say, he is an absolute beast of festive spirit. We might have to hear...
You called me the Grinch just now, Johnny.
And you proved me wrong. Coming up in the next hour, we are going to be talking about Martin Allen's family Christmas, but we're also going to be talking to Mark Flanagan, Love Sport's Northwest correspondent. That's because David De Gea has injured his hamstring on Spain duty. What does that mean for Manchester United? What could it mean for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer? We're also talking England under-21s and specifically Eddie Nketiah. He scored a hat-trick last night against Austria. He's now calling for more game time at Leeds. It sounds a little bit bold, but when you're scoring a goal every 66 minutes, he might well have a point. We're also talking Rugby World Cup, Aussies in the England camp. Are you a fan? Do you hate it? Get in touch. 02 08 70 20 558 on WhatsApp. First of all, though, it's time for the news.
On digital radio, online, mobile, and smart speaker.
This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 5, intense negotiations continue in Brussels with key issues still unresolved over a potential Brexit deal. Boris Johnson's chaired a meeting of his cabinet this afternoon, but it's understood ministers weren't given a full briefing on the progress of the talks. European Council President Donald Tusk says he would have bet on a deal 24 hours ago, but there are now doubts from the British side.
Theoretically, everything should be clear in 7 to 8 hours. Negotiations are ongoing as we speak. I was hoping that this morning we would receive a complete negotiated legal text of the agreement.
Police in Bulgaria have arrested 2 more people in connection with racist gestures made towards England footballers. 6 people in total have now been detained following the match on Monday night. Former Emmerdale actress Leah Bracknell has died at the age of 55 after suffering from lung cancer. She played Zoe Tate for almost 16 years, making her the first to portray a lesbian character on a British soap. The jury in the trial of Paul Gascoigne has retired to consider its verdict. The former England footballer is accused of sexually assaulting a woman on a train after kissing her, a charge he denies. The mother of a seriously ill British child says she settled in well to her new surroundings in Italy. Tafida Rakib has been transferred to a hospital in Genoa following a legal battle after doctors in the UK deemed her too badly brain damaged for continued treatment. Dr Luca Remengi says he found the British attitude confusing.
I felt a bit strange to read a lot of time the word futile. We are not always able to treat and to solve the problems, but we have to be able to take care. It's a word that is not really in our DNA.
And Prince William and Kate have been given a colourful hat as they visited mountains in northern Pakistan. The couple also went to a village destroyed by flooding in 2015, meeting survivors of the disaster. That's the latest. I'm Will Rowe.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker.
This is the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive.
Good evening. You're listening to the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive with me, Johnny Burrow, Guy Watts, and special guest Martin Allen. I apologise. He loves Christmas. He also used to play for West Ham, manage Brentford and manage Barnet, apparently 53 times. Your top stories this evening. David De Gea has given Ole Gunnar Solskjaer yet another injury worry. That's ahead of Manchester United's crucial Premier League game against Liverpool on Sunday. And sport and politics are mixing in Spain. Next weekend's El Clasico could be moved from the Nou Camp to the Bernabeu, with pro-independence protests planned in Catalonia. We've got some breaking news into the Love Sport studio as well, which is that England women are set for a record attendance against Germany at Wembley. The current record was the 80,203 people who attended the 2012 Olympic final between the United States and Japan. Apart from Olympic Games, the UK record for attendance of a women's football match is 45,000. So the fact that the Lionesses are selling over 80,000, they've apparently sold Wembley out, is absolutely extraordinary, Martin.
Unbelievable. From a couple of years ago, who would have ever believed? And I think, Johnny, a lot of credit has got to go to Phil Neville, the manager.
Well, I've always said this, Martin. He's got a vision that no one else has.
Really? That's what he said, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think he's an idiot.
Why do you think he's an idiot?
I think he's a very good football manager. It annoyed me when he started going on about his own brilliance, because I personally think he's a fairly standard football manager. But I think, to be fair to him, the changes in stature of the women's game while he has been in charge has been very, very impressive.
Would stature profile, would that be profile? Lifted?
Yeah, absolutely.
And some of those perhaps statements that may be a little bit OTT that you're talking about, perhaps that's also added to the the game and the being on the front page and making those comments and those statements and that perhaps arrogant, confident attitude that he's shown with the team. And they were unlucky, weren't they, against America? A little bit unlucky when they got knocked out. But no, I think it's amazing. Over 90,000 at Wembley Stadium. Oh, my God, that's going to be a great day.
It is absolutely amazing. Of course, the challenge now is to win, because otherwise we're going to see 90,000 people see us get beaten by Germany. You don't want that.
No, but again, Johnny, I've got to question you on your mindset. We've got to win because 90,000 people will see us lose against Germany. You don't go into the game thinking like that. You've lost before you've even started. Johnny, turn 90,000 people to see England beat Germany. Awesome. Can't wait. Live on telly, I'll have my slippers, my mug of coffee and 6 digestives on the sofa. Cannot wait.
Well, maybe even Emil Heskey will score. When we're talking about...
Emil Heskey?
It was a joke, the 5-1.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got you. A deep joke, that one, Johnny.
When we're talking England brilliance in sport, we've got to focus on the Rugby World Cup. We've got a quarter-final coming up on Saturday morning against Australia, and Eddie Jones's decision to bring in former Aussie Rugby League player Ricky Stewart has got people talking. He's there to give advice, just to give some tips. Some Australians not happy with the decision, perhaps an opportunity for a spot of Kevin Petersoning, and some Englishmen not happy either. For now, we're joined to talk more by Robbie Hunter-Poole, the former New Zealand Rugby League player. Good afternoon, Robbie. Thank you for joining us. What sort of experience can someone like Ricky bring to the England team?
Well, I reckon a massive amount of experience. I think one of the things you've got to take into account, even though there's a lot of sort of historic enmity between the two codes, there's actually not from a playing point of view. So when you're motivating players, you want to hear from the best. And what there is also from players is a lot of mutual respect. And I think what Eddie Jones is trying to do here is to get someone that is been there, done that. He's won the NRL competition. He's played international rugby league at the highest level. He's a World Cup winner. He's achieved absolutely everything in the game of rugby league. He actually has a background in rugby union, so it's not like he's coming into the fire cold. He does have a good understanding of the sport. But more importantly, he's a winner. He understands success. He's led his Canberra team to the NRL final, just closely losing this year, a couple of weeks ago. But when there is that mutual respect from the players to legends of either code, you listen, you stand up and you listen. Look, the messages, the lessons aren't really that much different between any code, but it does make it different. You do like hearing from a different sound, a different voice, and it makes those same messages have a little bit more impact. So I think that's the value in bringing in someone like Ricky Stewart, who's been there, done that, and is so juxtaposition to what they'll probably normally get, and that'll be the same sort of faces that they've already heard from and the same stories that they've already heard before as well. Narrative is extremely important when it comes to motivating players to focus on the job at hand.
And with this game that we face on Saturday morning, England v Australia, would you love it if we beat them?
100%.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I'll say that really quickly.
I don't like them, do you?
100%. You know, like the British, like the English, when it comes to war, fighting shoulder to shoulder, yes, we'll get in the trenches with our Australian brethren. But when it comes to the sporting arena, it's as bloodthirsty as it is with the Ashes. You know, the New Zealanders love competing against the Australian. We've had our number over them in rugby union, but Australia have pretty much had their own number over us in most other sports, including rugby league, my code. So when it comes to an opportunity to get one over on the Aussies, our hated brothers that we love to hate, we'll probably throw our support in behind England. Well, actually, this Kiwi will be anyway.
Yeah, and it's good with going back. You mentioned the Ashes there. It was good because we drew the Ashes, didn't we? 2-2. So we drew the Ashes. We didn't lose the Ashes. 2-2.
Exactly, and
good.
It's a matter of reminding them about that. But more importantly, England's won the last 6 Test matches against Australia. That's something that they can't forget. This is something that's got to help England get that confidence. Australia will be desperate, but Australia have had a horrendous preparation for the World Cup. The Israel Folau debacle that's gone on down under is just absolutely absorbed everyone in regards to the Wallabies. Maybe Michael Cheika thought this would be a great opportunity to clear that all away. But, it's going to be an exciting game no matter what.
And Robbie, I've been watching, obviously, the Rugby World Cup a lot. I'm not a rugby league expert, but am I right in thinking that things like the rush defence that we're seeing a lot of, these cross-field kicks that have been so effective, partly in light of that rush defence, that's almost sort of nicked, isn't it, from rugby league? And I think you guys would like to claim a little bit of that. Have you, if you've been watching a lot of the Rugby World Cup, enjoyed seeing that and the way that Union is sort of learning some lessons from rugby league?
Look, yeah, there has been a big influence in rugby league when the game went professional since 1995, and that was to come. It's about, so the old style of rugby, be it either code, was about, winning possession and winning ground position, how far you're up the field. But what the reality is now is like every other professional sport. It's not so much about how many meters you make, it's how many millimeters you make. So any given opportunity, you should have the skill level and ability to capitalize on. So the cross-field kick, that came about in rugby league before it did in rugby union, but it's just basically kicking the ball into space. But you've got to create that space in the first place. The interpassing between the forwards, that was something that was completely laughed at and outlawed in rugby union. Forwards don't pass the ball. They tuck it under their arm and their head down, backside up, and just run over top of each other. Well, that's all changed. That's out the window because, again, it's the millimeters. It's every little opportunity, and it's great to see that development in both codes. It's where now that they take the sport, it's got to be, you'll get to a level where physically everyone will just be the same because eating the same nutrition, using the same training aspects. So what does it come down to? It's got to generate back to skill base, and that's what we've seen. It's generated back to the skill-based game, and that's what makes both codes extremely exciting to watch.
Robbie, a simple one for you. Who's going to win the World Cup?
All Blacks.
No, you got that wrong there, big boy. England are going to beat them. England will beat them.
All Blacks.
Yeah, we've got a guy called Billy Vinapola. He's fully English. He'll be the man.
That is a very English name from the South Sea Islands, England. Look, I got no problem with that. My brother played for England, and Henry Paul was born in New Zealand, grew up in New Zealand. I played with my teammates and guys that I consider brothers, Fontaine Hoppe, Leslie Vainicolo, all represented England. I got no problem with that. But, I just can't see past the All Blacks. But I'm blinkered. I'm blind. All Blacks haven't had their own way. They've had what is probably one of the easiest pathways to the playoffs, and that's always a dangerous thing. They had a tough game against South Africa, which they scraped through and just got the win. The other teams have been tested more, and that's where New Zealand has fallen down before in the past. But, blood is thicker than water, so I've got to back the Blacks.
Well, if you have to. It's going to be very painful for you when we beat you, Robbie, but that, I guess, is part of competitive
You're lucky he's not sat 2 feet in front of you.
I tell you what, if Robbie Hunter-Paul, the former New Zealand Rugby League player, was sitting 2 feet in front of me, I wouldn't be saying that. Robbie, thank you for your time. Great to talk to you. Please don't hurt me. I think that's all I can say. I think we got a chance. I think being underdogs, should we reach that semi-final, will suit us because everyone expects the All Blacks to do it. So what have we got to lose?
Johnny, I'm going to interrupt you. Weren't it good listening to him speak?
Oh, lovely. Great guy.
Wasn't it? He's a powerful monster man, isn't he? You could tell it. I bet he was a brilliant player when he at rugby.
I bet he was, Martin. And something he said I thought was really interesting. That thing he said, and I think, for all the bluster and all the chit-chat and the laughs we've had about bringing Aussies into the camp, this bringing a Ricky Stewart in, who's clearly a mate of Eddie Jones, a guy he really respects, a coach and a player at the top level in rugby league. He talked about different voices and different narratives being so important in helping to motivate players. And you've talked about, I forget the name of your kit man, was it Kevin? Malcolm the kit man. That sort of thing, whether it's him or whether it's Ricky Stewart, a sporting legend coming in, it can make a massive difference, can't it?
Yeah, it can. And he just spoke with that positive attitude that, I mentioned to you about the ladies team playing in front of 90,000. You said, oh, that could be tough if they get beat by Germany in front of 90,000. Well, I don't think he thinks like that when he was talking about his the Blacks. He was talking about his team winning the World Cup. No one really can touch them. The only thing that could touch them is the fact they haven't played as many tough games. So he faced up to the reality of it. Let's be honest, privately, I think we all realise New Zealand are the favourites for this World Cup. But if we could get amongst them, we have one of those special days where they don't perhaps play as well. Australia will wipe the floor with them on the weekend. But when it comes to to playing New Zealand, anything could happen. But what an interview that was. That was I love listening to that.
Well, that's what we deliver here on Posh Boys.
That's why we
Drive.
love sport.
That's why we love sport. And on Love Sport Radio, we've got another stormer coming up for you. We're going to be talking to our Northwest correspondent, chatting De Gea, chatting Nketiah, and chatting why Manchester United are in a spot of trouble.
This is Love Sport.
Cancer. It can affect anyone. And when it does, Macmillan are right there to support them. From the moment of diagnosis, we offer physical, financial, and emotional support. And it's your donations that make it possible. So we can be on the phone, in hospitals, running support centres, and ready to help people deal with the fallout. We are funded by you, the public. So please give what you can at macmillan.org.uk. Macmillan Cancer Support, right there with you.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. This means that travelling to the EU will change. You'll need to check online if your passport is valid for travel to Europe. If you're planning on driving, you'll need to check if you have the right documents to drive. And make sure your travel insurance covers all your healthcare needs. To keep your trip on track, check what you need to do at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
Are you paying way over the odds for your car insurance? The spiralling costs put people off driving, full stop. But you're a careful driver, and realistically, you'll only need an insurance payout if some halfwit cuts you off on the M1. So you shouldn't be forced to pay massive car insurance premiums. And you don't have to. Go to price comparison site aspokesmansaid.com today and find out the best value car insurance deals on the market. Don't pay the price for not shopping around.
Spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it, sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Believe me, he who laughs last thinks slowest. Ha ha ha, see, that was a laugh because I'm clever enough.
This is Love Sport.
When Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's Manchester United players went off on international duty, he'll have had one very simple wish. Please, please, please don't get injured. And it was all going so well. They'd avoided any serious trouble for any key men, and beyond that, there were injured players coming back. Anthony Martial racing back to fitness for this crucial Liverpool game on Sunday. Then, with half an hour of the international break to play, David De Gea, the highly paid goalkeeper, the club captain to boot, picks up a hamstring injury. It's everything Ollie didn't want to happen. We're joined on the line by Mark Flanagan, who is Love Sport's Northwest correspondent. Good evening, Mark. How big a problem is this for Ollie?
Big problem if it's right that we're led to believe it could be 2 months. It's interesting, actually. He told his coach at half-time apparently he had a problem with his thigh, I think inside of his thigh, the abductor muscle. Complained it was sore, and then he carried on for another 15 minutes. And as we all know, one of the worst things you can do if you've got an injury is to try and battle through it, and it can aggravate it. And that could have been the difference between 2 weeks and 2 months, I think. So, yeah, it's a big problem. Although obviously he's got a very good number 2 in Romero, who hasn't been away with Argentina, so will be fresh. He hasn't had to travel all around the world. He hasn't played for his country this year, in fact. So it's handy for Solskjaer that he's got such an experienced and competent reserve.
Mark, I know he's played 90 games for Argentina. How good is Romero? How good is he?
Well, there's a sort of an opinion up here that really he's actually a better all-round keeper in terms of he's better with the ball at his feet. Possibly not quite in the sort of same calibre as a shot stopper, but in terms of all the other aspects of goalkeeping, coming for balls, taking control in his penalty area, I think a lot of United fans actually think he's better than De Gea in those departments. So I think it's kind of the least of their worries, really, for a lot of United fans who know what they're talking about, who sort of go week in, week out.
And Martial, is reports, especially from Guy, who's all over Manchester United all the time, despite this run that they're on. Martial, is he going to play as a centre forward, as that number 9 up the middle, or will he be a sub? How fit is he to come back into such a big game as this?
my understanding is he's not 100%, so that obviously is a big worry. And obviously, when you've got the problems that United have got up front and the lack of goals and the inability of Rashford to play in that front role with any kind of degree of confidence or competence, I think it's likely that unless he's really struggling, that they're prepared to risk him. He was training today. He was training earlier this week as well, so he's fit and ready to go. It's obviously when you haven't played, match fit and being fit to train and being match fit are two different things. So that's obviously the gamble that they're going to have to take to play him up front. Rashford, obviously playing for England, looks so much better out wide. Cutting in from the right and playing on the left-hand side. Although obviously Dan James has been the sort of big success story playing on the left, so it'll be interesting to see what he does for Liverpool.
From the point of view of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's future, the Daily Mail today are reporting that Massimiliano Allegri could be close to taking that United job. I have long felt that the 20th of October would be the date that Solskjaer lost his job after a hammering at the hands of Liverpool. Don't look outraged, Martin Allen. I said this live on the radio with you 3 weeks ago.
He does it every time, Mark. Every time. Every manager's under pressure.
I'm a terrible person, Mark, but beyond that, what's your feeling? If United really do get battered on Sunday, can Ole keep his job?
Well, I think if they're making a decision based on one game, they're obviously more incompetent than we all thought. It's ridiculous that they will do it on a game-by-game basis. The Allegri stories received kind of being ramped up because the Turin-based sports newspaper Tutto Sport are reporting that there's concrete agreements being made, that even a salary's been agreed. But this is kind of how United work now. Woodward is one of these guys in terms of how he works with getting new people in. Is he takes them all the way to the finish line. So if he's signing a right back, he'll have 3 lined up and he'll try and get them all as close to the deal as possible, just to make sure if A or B fall through, he's got C back up his sleeve. So it's not always a guarantee that something concrete is going to happen further down the line, that serious talks will have taken place. My understanding is that the board is split in terms of half want Solskjaer out ASAP, and the other half are kind of backing Ed Woodward in terms of giving him more time. But obviously with someone like Allegri and his calibre, you've got to remember that he's obviously got a very good relationship with Pogba. He was Pogba's manager at Juventus. There's talk of him bringing Patrice Evra in as well. They were spotted in conversation at a football game a couple of weeks ago. So, Allegri ticks a few boxes for United, and obviously if you can get Pogba on board, that would obviously be an important aspect of appointing him and getting rid of Solskjaer.
And just taking you back and winding you back, that Ed Woodward always has like a first choice, second choice, third choice, and he's got different options for different positions, including probably the manager right at the moment. How did they go about selling Lukaku and not replacing him before the season started? What went wrong there?
Well, you've got to remember that the overriding thing as well is a financial thing. So, there's this kind of theory that basically they left Lukaku so late because they didn't want to have time to sign another one. And they were sold the story that with Rashford, Martial and Greenwood as the sort of third option, that would be enough. That would be enough in terms of the centre-forward position. And the only way that kind of makes sense that they would sell Lukaku so late is that Phelan and Solskjaer have convinced the guys at the top that those 3 guys are going to be enough moving forward in the short term. They had the opportunity to sign Mandzukic, but obviously he's 33 and he doesn't fit into this new method of signing young, hungry players, trying to sign British players as well. And it was just felt that, he hasn't played, he didn't have a great season last season and he's on his way down, and they wanted to, Solskjaer and Phelan want to move away from, the ready-made replacement model, which obviously hasn't actually worked particularly well at United over the last 5 years as well. So there's 2 parts to it, as in terms of the finance and Solskjaer having his faith in the youth.
I want to talk, when you mentioned faith in youth, about Eddie Nketiah as well. He scored a very good hat-trick for the England under-21s last night and used the moment in the spotlight that afforded him to suggest he'd like a bit more playing time at Leeds. Now, he averages 66 minutes per goal this season for his club side, which is pretty extraordinary. Do you think Bielsa's underplaying him?
Well, he hasn't made a start for Leeds in the Championship, so you've got to fancy he's got a point, and the 2 times he has played, he scored. You know, Leeds' problem over the last 30 months has been they played teams off the park and they just can't finish them off, and it's started to happen again. They lost to Millwall, lost to Charlton. I know they beat West Brom, but this problem they've got of dominating teams and not finishing them off, and there's enormous pressure on Bamford. In Leeds, Bamford is a real Marmite figure. You either love him or you hate him. He does a lot of good work in and around the box, but his goal-scoring record is poor. And Nketiah is a real kind of throwback to he's a real poacher. But does he do enough? This idea that the modern-day striker's got to be more than someone who just sticks the ball in the back of the net. So Bielsa likes his teams to work their socks off. And the theory is that Nketiah doesn't quite fit that model, but obviously I think he's got 8 goals in 7 games for the under-21s. So it just seemed a bit odd that a team who struggles in front of goal aren't prepared to play him other than coming off the bench for the last sort of 30, 40 minutes, which has been what's happening. It is a little bit odd, and then obviously the pressure's got to be huge now. You know, Leeds have had a dodgy run. You've got to fancy that he'll play at the weekend. It would be a brave man not to play him when he after scoring a hat-trick on an international stage.
Very impressive stuff. Mark, great to speak to you. Thank you for your time. Mark Flanagan there, Love Sports Northwest correspondent. Martin, what do you think about strikers? Does a striker have to do more than just stick the ball in the back of the net? Because for me, if an Eddie Nketiah is scoring a goal every 66 minutes or scoring a hat-trick, he can provide absolutely nothing to the rest of the team, and he is still doing his job.
Well, Johnny, we take you back to the Man City situation with Pep Guardiola when he first arrived, and he took Aguero to the side and said, listen, blah, 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 you need to work hard for the team. You need to work hard for the team, not only with the ball, but without the ball. Very similar to the Liverpool look. All the 3 centre forwards, they've got all 3 forwards, Salah, Mane, and also Firmino. They track back, they run back, they close down, they high press that we hear about all the time. There's some clubs that high press, but if you have one player that doesn't quite do it and the other team gets out, then it's all pointless. They do it at high speed with desire and energy, and so now does Aguero. He had to adapt, if not he was going to be out. You have to remember he was sub for Man City for a lot of the time in the first part of Pep's career at City. But now, oh my God, he works for the team and he puts it in. I haven't seen enough of Eddie Nketiah to see what he's like, but gone are the days where you can just be a centre forward and a goal hanger, as we used to call them, where you can nick goals. You need wins, and you need to win championships. And you need everybody in your team to defend for the team.
For me, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who shared the Golden Boot last year with 23 goals, he's second so far this year with 7, is one of those strikers, to be honest. If Arsenal don't play well... No. You don't think so?
No, he runs about, he doesn't hold back, he doesn't stroll. I saw Ozil play 2 weeks ago, and he walked about, brilliant with the ball at his feet. Absolutely awesome. And everybody can say, oh, I've heard it a million times, brilliant player. No, he's brilliant with the ball, but if he loses it, you can't have him just walking back and not interested in defending and helping your team. And nowadays, especially nowadays, you cannot have what you would call, or we used to call in the old days, those luxury number 10 players that could just walk about and just play good when they get the ball. It just doesn't exist.
Well, I'll always have a soft spot for Eddie Nketiah because I was there at the Emirates when I think it was his first appearance as a professional, scored twice off the bench in the League Cup against Norwich. And it was this amazing thing to be in the Arsenal end four because no one knew who he was and no one could pronounce his last name. He came off the bench, he won us the game, and the entire stadium was just chanting Eddie, 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 while turning to each other and going, Who's
that?
Who is he?
Yeah.
You ever heard of him? How's he scoring?
But the other week, talking of Arsenal, I was at the Arsenal game against Notts Forest. I saw the centre forward, the 18-year-old Martinelli. Everybody was doing the same that night. Unbelievable. Arsenal have got two young, outstanding centre forwards. So the future for Arsenal is bright.
I still do want to see some kind of Martin Allen, Martinelli crossover. We'll make it happen, and we've got lots more to come on Posh Boys on Drive.
Love sport.
Home insurance is vital. You don't want to end up paying through the nose when something goes wrong. But are you being charged way too much for your home cover? Are your insurance premiums simply too much to bear? It doesn't have to be that way. A spokesmansaid.com is a price comparison website that trawls the internet to find the best deal for you. Don't pay the price for not shopping around. A spokesmansaid.com and start saving today.
A spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Cancer can affect anyone, and when it does, financial and emotional support. And it's your donations that make it possible. So we can be on the phone, in hospitals, running support centres, and ready to help people deal with the fallout. We are funded by you, the public. So please give what you can at macmillan.org.uk. Macmillan Cancer Support, right there with you.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. Brexit will bring changes that affect businesses in many ways, particularly if you buy from EU suppliers, sell to EU customers, provide services to EU clients, and receive customer data from other businesses in the EU. Businesses need to prepare. Find out how at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
You probably think you're pretty good at multitasking behind the wheel. I mean, you have to multitask to drive. So what's wrong with checking your phone? The thing is, your brain simply doesn't work that way. Even a quick look at a message, or firing off a quick reply, affects your concentration and makes you less able to react to hazards. If you use a mobile phone while driving, you're 4 times more likely to crash. Think. Put your phone away.
This is Love Sport.
Guess what? It's the Posh Boys. On Love Sport Drive, you're with me, Johnny Burrow, Guy Watts, and special guest Martin Allen. And Guy has all your latest sporting headlines.
Bulgarian police have now arrested 6 people for making racist gestures during Monday's Euro 2020 qualifier with England. 9 others are being investigated. The match was stopped twice after some of the home supporters directed monkey chants at England's black players in Sofia. Gareth Southgate's team won the game 6-0. La Liga have asked for this month's meeting between Barcelona and Real Madrid to be moved due to protests in Catalonia. The Spanish top flight want the El Clasico match switched to Madrid, with Barcelona then playing at home in March next year. 9 Catalan separatist leaders were jailed on Monday for their part in a failed bid for independence. And a record crowd for an England women's game will watch their friendly with Germany next month. Tickets for the match at Wembley have sold out. Remember, Wembley has a capacity of 90,000. The previous record for the highest ever attendance for an England game was set in 2014 when 45,619 people watched England lose 3-0 to the Germans. Let's hope for a better result in front of 90,000 next month. Weather-wise, tonight we're looking at a largely dry and clear night for most people with some patchy fog or mist around. Quite a chilly one, especially up in Scotland with a bit of frost possible as well. Tomorrow we're looking at some showers spreading east throughout the day with the winds freshening up as well. Showers could be heavy and thundery in places. The east, though, looks set to remain dry. Tomorrow looking at highs of around 15 degrees. Very shortly going to be talking a bit more about Man United and that game against Liverpool on Sunday. Could it really be Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's last in charge? And we're going to be talking more about Lewis Hamilton with an environmentalist a little bit before 6 o'clock. So stay with us to hear that as well.
Love Sport.
Cancer. It can affect anyone. And when it does, Macmillan are right there to support them. From the moment of diagnosis, we offer physical, financial, and emotional support. And it's your donations that make it possible. So we can be on the phone, in hospitals, running support centres, and ready to help people deal with the fallout. We are funded by you, the public. So please give what you can at macmillan.org.uk. Macmillan Cancer Support, right there with you.
This is Love Sport.
It doesn't happen very often that in a break, Guy Watts pulls me aside and goes, Johnny, I don't want to change the running order of the show, but I've really got to get something off my chest. That's happened this afternoon. Guy Watts is a passionate...
That's why he's taking his jumper off.
He's getting hot under the collar in every sense.
He's getting hot, excited, because he's probably talking Man United if this guy.
Oh, he's guessed it.
It is indeed. You were, of course, listening to our Northwest correspondent Mark Flanagan talk about your beloved Mancunians, and you've got a point to make.
Well, I just thought that Mark put something in an interesting way. Let's put it that way. He said the board, if you like, at Man United will be, what was it, even more incompetent, I think were the words he used, than we thought they were if they were to get rid of, sack Ole Gunnar Solskjaer after the game against Liverpool on Sunday, assuming that that game is a defeat for Manchester United, which is, I think it's fair to say, the most likely result one way or the other, whether it's 3-0, 1-0, 5-2, whatever. I think you've got to expect Liverpool to win that game. They've won 8 out of 8 already, of course, this Premier League season. Man United have won 2 out of 8, so I think that tells you all you need to know. But what I wanted to pick up on was the idea, and I feel like we've gone along with this because some of the sensational aspects of the print media have been saying it. The idea that this game against Liverpool, actually, Martin, you're exempt from this because you've been saying something similar, but that this game against Liverpool is the one by which he's going to be judged and measured. Liverpool are the European champions. They are 8 points clear at the top of the Premier League. Why really should a game for Manchester United against that team, Manchester United who have 9 points from 8 games, who aren't in the top European competition and have been in and out of that over the last few years, not just this year, why would they be judged? Why would the manager be judged so much on this game? How ludicrous an idea would that be? These teams are so far apart now as to be not really in the same category except in history. I know you've got the local rivalry as well. Obviously, as a Man United fan, you love beating Liverpool probably more than you do love beating anyone else. But you've got to accept that it's not going to happen. And unless it's 7-0, and unless he tries to pick a team with 8 defenders in it and doesn't even try and play any football, which I don't think is going to happen, why would this game even possibly be his last? Why would this game be the one that he's going to get judged on?
The reason for it will be cynical. And if they sack him because they get beaten 4-0 by Liverpool, I take your point, but I don't think it will be because they got beaten 4-0 by Liverpool.
So why do it after that game? Why not do it after losing to Newcastle? That makes more sense. Close to Newcastle in the table.
Because it would be the final nail in the coffin. And if we're looking at this properly cynically, let's go back to when Manchester United sacked Jose Mourinho. They did it after a tough game, at a point where the new man who came in would have, in relative terms, a fairly favourable run of fixtures. My feeling, and I've said this all along, was that Solskjaer would get the sack after the Liverpool game, and he would get it because they're not happy with him, but they wouldn't want a new manager struggling with a fairly dodgy squad to get spanked by Liverpool early on in his tenure. If we look at the fixtures immediately after that Liverpool game, you've got Belgrade twice, relatively easy. You've got the likes of Norwich. You've got the likes of Aston Villa. He gets a good 6-week period if a new guy comes in which he's actually not playing any massive sides. So in terms of managing the morale of the club, managing that next appointment in terms of cynicism and in terms of timing, I think it would be intelligent to sack Solskjaer after Liverpool, and I don't think it would have very much at all to do with the result of the game.
So Mourinho, of course, had his last game in charge against Liverpool as well. It was the corresponding, well, actually it was at Anfield, that one last year. It lost 3-1, although it was 1-1 for a little while. But I think as much as anything else, it was the way that United lost that game, set up with a back 5 or 6 or something ridiculous. Darmian was involved. Told you all you needed to know. Martin, tell us whether we're making sense of what we're saying.
I think Johnny's making sense there, to be honest. I think to wait till after the Liverpool game, where they will probably get beat. Probably. It's not a definite because, with
certain players
they have got some players playing Manchester United, and if Pogba's fit, which I don't think he is he?
Probably not.
Shaw's not fit,
no.
So that's another one missing. So he has got some good players missing, but he is finding it difficult. And if the players are not happy with training, which we've seen snippets of reports over the past few weeks that they don't think the coaches are up to it, and if he's not coping very well, those rumours and those little bits, snippets of information would already be back up via agents and via media into Ed Woodward on his desk that things aren't right. And you could probably see from some of the performances, even though key players have been missing for Ollie, the performances have not been good, which then does put you as a manager on thin ice.
Well, can I throw something back at you then? There's just been 2 weeks, all right, without any fixtures. The international break, which is considered, as we've seen, particularly in the Championship, a couple of clubs take the opportunity to change their managers, considered one of the best opportunities to do so, because you can come in, okay, you don't have all the players, but you have a little core of players there who you can work with. You can start implementing your methods, change the attitude and the atmosphere around the training ground. And also, look at the managerial change we've had in the Premier League at Watford. Bring him in ahead of games against Arsenal and Manchester City. Okay, it backfired to a degree with the Man City game, but it worked with the Arsenal game. They got a result there. It can go both ways, can't it?
A lot of the time, they don't do it because they prefer, like Johnny said, to put it out a game against Norwich rather than so they can start off on a winning roll. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so you can implement your new style. You can maybe change a few players to bring things together. There might also be a few players coming back from injury that you can catch up on. So there's different ways and different times to do it, but it never surprises me. They could get a good result at the weekend, beat Norwich, and all of a sudden, with a couple of players returning from injury, and I think it's not a bad thing that Romero's going to play in goal rather than Van der Sar, because he's made a mistake and error after error. That one against Van Arnold at Crystal Palace a few weeks ago. Oh my God, what was he doing?
He certainly hasn't looked himself. Listen, I have challenged the job security of managers so much on this show with you, Martin, that it's become, I think, our only real running joke. Me asking Martin Allen, is the manager under pressure? Now, your default response, quite rightly, is to defend the manager. Speaking honestly, as someone who works as a football manager, has been riding high when you're popular with the board, popular with the fans, and also has had lower moments where you've seen yourself lose your job.
Sacked, they call it.
Well, that is the technical term.
Sacked in the morning.
Sacked. I've had that a few times. That was my wife in the car on the way home.
Do you? Sounds like a lovely lady. Do you take it personally or do you feel on a personal level for these managers like Ollie when you see us all speculating about the safety of their jobs?
Yeah, I see their faces in the interviews, and I see him at the moment. He's very pale. That smile, that nice little glint, because he's got a cheeky, nice smile, and he's a person. He's a very likeable person in his interviews, and he hasn't said anything detrimental about his players. He's stood by all his players. He's not criticised anybody at the football club, and unshaven, top button undone, white face. He looks a bit drawn to me, and he does look to me as though he's struggling. He does look like that.
To go back to where we started this then, I use Mark's comment to say that to sack him after the Liverpool game would make the board look even more incompetent than we thought they were. Where do you stand on that then? Because last year you could argue it worked a treat, sacking a manager before an, quote, easy run of games, bringing in Solskjaer, had an uplift. Okay, ultimately the season came to nothing really, but it gave United a chance of maybe a top four finish, a chance of sort of recalling, if you like, rolling back the years, recalling the glory days. So it could work in that sense, but surely to sack him now, having given him a 3-year contract just, 6 months ago, it does, and to sack him after Liverpool, the European champions. No one's getting a result against Liverpool.
Guy, I 100%, 110% agree with you, and I have said from day one when we've been debating this topic, they've given him a contract, a 3-year contract. They've allowed him to spend over 150 million on a right back, a left winger, and a centre back. 150 million. They've given him a 3-year deal. Now, if they sack him now, they also should be looking at their own job and saying, how the hell am I still here? Because someone, for me, should also be accountable. All these managers that quickly keep getting the sack, who appoints them? Who have brought them in? Why is it the manager that goes and not the person that brought him in when it happens so quickly? I think the Glazers should be looking at Ed Woodward. And everybody can say, well, he's made £762 million or whatever it is for this football club. But when you're playing in the Champions League and you've got Mourinho, you are going to attract mega sponsorship deals. If you haven't got Mourinho, and you're not in the Champions League, those sponsorship deals, they are going to be dipping. And if you're mid-table Premier League, not got global markets like they used to have, without the manager that they had, then they're in income. And I think on Ed Woodward's door, there has got to be a massive question mark.
I think you're spot on, but do we underestimate quite how long the name of Manchester United, that reputation, that kind of cachet, will persevere even with results off the pitch? Today, Kylian Mbappe is being linked with a move away from PSG and seriously linked to becoming a Manchester United player in 2021. In a footballing sense, that should never happen. Kylian
Who's
Mbappe,
linked him?
The Daily Mail.
Come on.
They're normally all right.
Come on.
Martin's not having it.
Is he really going to go to Manchester United to play in the Europa League?
Well, he might.
And work at that level? You must be mad. He must be mad. They're not going to go there. It ain't happening at the moment. You might get a few players from the top level of English football, but the best players want to play for Barcelona, Real Madrid, Liverpool, Pep Guardiola at Man City, Champions League, top coaches, top managers, top players. At Manchester United, they are a way off that. They've given him the job. They've given him 3 years. You've got to give him more than one transfer window. He's got to have a dabble in January and 4 or 5 players. And we spoke at length at 4 or 5 players. Pogba, sell him. De Gea, sell him. Get players in that want to play for Man United with a positive outlook, a positive attitude, and nothing will change if those players are dictating the mood of the dressing room, and it'll be negative.
Coming up on Love Sport Drive, it's a first for us on Posh Boys. We've got an environmentalist on the line giving his take on Lewis Hamilton's private jet.
Love Sport Radio, the station giving fans a voice.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it, sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage.
Henna men.
Cage.
Pants and pads.
You're
discreet. Masculine.
You're
secure absorption zone. Buy online or in shops.
You're
Tenna men. Keep control.
Urine?
No.
There are fewer than 20 days to get ready for Brexit. Find out what you need to do to prepare now at gov.uk/Brexit.
Cancer. It can affect anyone. And when it does, Macmillan are right there to support them. From the moment of diagnosis, we offer physical, financial, and emotional support. And it's your donations that make it possible. So we can be on the phone, in hospitals, running support centres, and ready to help people deal with the fallout. We are funded by you, the public. So please give what you can at macmillan.org.uk. Macmillan Cancer Support, right there with you.
Before you set off on a long journey, remember to check your vehicle. Are your tyres correctly inflated? And are the treads deep enough? Have you got enough fuel? Is your oil level right? Checking your vehicle doesn't take long, but can prevent a breakdown or accident, and save you money. So, before you set off on a long journey, check your tyres, fuel, and oil. Highways England, connecting the country.
I like Putin. He gets me. I like Trump. I've got him.
This is Love Sport.
Lewis Hamilton hit the headlines today, not for driving a racing car very, very quickly, but rather for outing himself on Instagram as an eco-warrior, as an environmentalist. We knew he's a vegan, he's plant-based, but he's done this post saying he's so concerned by the state of the environment that sometimes he feels like giving up on everything. We're joined on the line by Tom Burke, who's an environmentalist and founder of the think tank 3EG. Good evening, Tom. Thanks for joining us. How do you feel about this? Because on the one hand, there is the positive of an uber-famous sportsman giving environmentalism a greater platform, but equally, we have Lewis Hamilton here, the environmentalist and hypocrite. He owns a private jet. He has a £13 million car collection, and his team are sponsored by a petrol company. Where do you come down on this?
I come down. I think this is an extraordinary development. It's really helpful. I think Lewis Hamilton can reach parts of the public that other environmentalists, other people concerned about the environment can't reach. So I think it's really good that he's done this. He's inevitably going to be called a hypocrite. I think that's a kind of knee-jerk reaction from a lot of people. Almost all of us live with some contradiction or other in relation to the environment. He sold, by the way, according to the Instagram, he sold his private jet.
Good timing.
I mean, most of us would like to be in a position where we could do that for the environment. But I really do think that the cynics should give him a chance. You know, it's quite clear from the way he wrote in the Instagram, this is something he personally feels very deeply, and he's communicating it to an audience that wouldn't normally hear it from somebody as distinguished and is really good at what he does as Lewis is.
I actually sold my private jet last week, Tom. But Lewis...
Well done.
Thank you. I'm taking plaudits. The knighthood, I'm reliably informed, is in the post. Lewis isn't the only environmentalist celebrity who's taking flack, but others have taken the rather more extraordinary route of deeming themselves to be hypocrites. More than 100 have written an open letter saying, yes, we are hypocrites, but it's still massively important that we focus on this cause, the likes of Jude Law signing that letter. What's your take on that? Are you pleased to have hypocrites on side?
Yeah, I'm actually just irritated by the blame game, really. It's easy to try and shame people and blame them. But as I said earlier, none of us goes through our life without there being some contradiction between what we believe and what we do. What's much more important is that we try to work together to solve the big problems. And you don't do that by running around saying who's to blame. So, I'm really glad that people like Jude Law are actually making it clear that, that where they think we need to be heading. And, you look at somebody like Leonardo DiCaprio, who has his own team in Formula, I can't remember, it's Formula E, isn't it? He has his own racing team. We can move racing over to electric vehicles. I'm sure that's the direction we'll go in. So you need to have people who set a lead and point us in the right direction.
Would we like to see Hamilton do that then? I mean, the kind of things he has done in the past, racing these incredibly powerful cars, flying private jets, driving supercars and so on. What is the environmental cost of that?
Well, we're not going to solve environmental problems by adding up all the sort of improvements that individuals can make in their lives. Those are really important things to do, but unless governments really get on with decarbonizing our energy system, with making sure that we grow food without increasing the amount of carbon dioxide in the air, make sure that we get our heat in a way that doesn't add to the problem. Unless governments take much more vigorous action to deploy new technologies, improve energy efficiency, then all the individual actions of people, well-intentioned and helpful though they are not going to be enough.
Tom, do you think that celebrities such as Jude Law, such as Lewis Hamilton, are going to be able to lobby governmental change, or are we all ultimately doomed?
No, I don't think we're all ultimately doomed. I think we've seen an enormous shift in public concern about the climate change in particular, but the environment in general. And we saw in one of the evening newspapers recently run a front page saying 85% of people in this country are concerned about climate change. Now, I think some of that is helped a lot by people like Jude Law or Lewis Hamilton or Leonardo DiCaprio making it clear what they think. That gives people the confidence to express their own anxiety, their own fears about it. So I'm really glad they're joining in the debate.
Tom, for the normal people amongst us, not the Lewis Hamiltons of this world, whilst we don't have the power to pass bills into acts and really dictate government policy, what are the little things we can do to make a difference?
Well, the little things that we can do to make a difference is make sure, for instance, that our houses are efficient. Make sure that we're taking advantage of all the opportunities there are to get our energy bills down. We can make sure that when we travel on public transport if at all possible. We walk if we can. All of those little things add up to a contribution that matters if all of us do it. So there are lots of things. Everybody has something in their life that they can do that will make a difference. Just don't be wasteful. Everything that we get into our homes has had to get here somehow by traveling in a vehicle. The more we don't waste the things that come into our homes, whether it's food or whether it's plastics or whatever it is, the more we can do that, the more we lower the burden of transporting that stuff all around and therefore the burden on the climate. So there are lots of things that people can do in their own homes, and we know how willing people are. When we saw that when basically the government made a signal that it was a really bad idea to have plastic bags in supermarkets and put a little 5p tax on it, instantly 80% of people stopped using them. So there's an enormous amount of goodwill in the public. We need a bit more help from government about exactly what you can do where that's best, but there's no shortage of willingness in the public to do their bit.
Tom, great to talk to you. Thank you for your time. Tom Burke there, who's an environmentalist and founder of the think tank 3EG. What do you reckon, Martin? Are we on the right track as a nation?
Was that a very bad Lewis Hamilton pun?
No comment.
That wasn't a pun, was it?
Right track, F1.
Racetrack.
Oh, I think it's a more serious issue than joking and messing around.
Bore off, Martin Allen.
The
Your
Grinch
generation and blooming climate change, you are such a pain, you lot. Honestly, why don't you clear off down to Extinction Rebellion?
Oh.
that lot who stopped you getting over the bridge the other day, Martin.
Where were we? I think it was about 8 months ago. I'd done the breakfast show with Stoney, and we had somebody in, and he was telling us that a football field per day is being covered in water with the overflow of rivers somewhere in the middle of America. And it was like quite astonishing to think. And he told us that it was going underwater and they were losing that an American football field per day. And I came away from that thinking, oh my God, that's quite surreal. So I went home and checked it all out. And it was right that there is reducing in size quite dramatically everywhere. For people of our age, my age, what am I, in my mid-30s now, what are you laughing at, Johnny?
I'm not.
Mid-30s now, Johnny. We're not used to all that
right,
sort
mate?
of stuff.
Yeah, I'm fine. Oh, yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it, sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Hi, I'm Barry. I'm a retired school bursar from Chingford. I thought I was paying too much for my energy and went onto a spokesmansaid.com and found that I could reduce my costs overall by £568 per annum, and I'm very grateful for that help.
With a spokesmansaid.com, fighting for you, saving you money.
Cancer. It can affect anyone. And when it does, Macmillan are right there to support them. From the moment of diagnosis, we offer physical, financial, and emotional support. And it's your donations that make it possible. So we can be on the phone, in hospitals, running support centers, and ready to help people deal with the fallout. We are funded by you, the public. So please give what you can at macmillan.org.uk. Macmillan Cancer Support, right there with you.
If you see somebody showing any of the signs of a stroke, you don't have to think about it, you just dial 999. Use the FAST test. F, face. Has their face fallen on one side? Can they smile? A, arms. Can they raise both arms and keep them there? S, speech. Is their speech slurred? T, time. Time to call 999 if you see any one of these signs. Act fast, make the call, dial 999.
Yeah, and it was in Oklahoma where there was an American football field per day being flooded.
Martin, you've been talking about this for 2 minutes. Guy fired the ads last time because we'd had enough. We all get it. Lewis Hamilton's told us the environment's important. All right, lots to come on Posh Boys on Drive. I'm not having this. Time for the news.
What, is it another
On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 6, intensive meetings have been taking place in Brussels and Westminster as negotiators try to reach a Brexit agreement. Boris Johnson's held a cabinet meeting, apparently without giving ministers a full briefing on any deal, and a meeting between the Prime Minister and Tory backbenchers lasted less than 20 minutes. But Steve Baker, who chairs the ERG group of pro-Brexit MPs, thinks progress is being made.
All I'm happy to say is that it's a very constructive conversation, and that I am optimistic that it is possible to reach a tolerable deal, which I'll be able to vote for.
European leaders are gathering tomorrow, and here MPs will sit in Parliament on Saturday. Leah Bracknell, who played Zoe Tate in Emmerdale for more than 15 years, has died after a battle with lung cancer. The 55-year-old made her mark as the first lesbian character in a British soap. Police searching for a missing rugby player in South Wales have recovered the body of a woman in the River Taff. Brooke Morris hadn't been seen since friends gave her a lift home in the early hours of Saturday morning. 2 more Bulgarian football fans have been arrested in connection with racist abuse of England players during their Euro 2020 qualifier. It means 6 are now in custody. Bulgarian President Rumen Radev says the image of his country has been unfairly tarnished.
It is extremely displeasing that Bulgaria, which saved 50,000 Jews and did not allow any of them to be sent to the death camps in Europe's worst time, is to be personified by racism. We should not allow generalisation of this problem. The state needs to implement very strict measures.
The government shelved plans for controversial age verification measures for porn websites. Their introduction had already been delayed on a number of occasions because of concerns they wouldn't work and allow people's watching habits to be tracked. And a group of celebrities have called themselves hypocrites for backing climate change protesters. The stars, including Jude Law, Mel B and Tom York, signed an open letter saying that they live high carbon lives but want to change. That's the latest. I'm Will Rowe.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive.
Good evening. It is 3 minutes past 6. You're listening to the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive with me, Johnny Burrow, Guy Watts and special guest Martin Allen. Your top stories this evening. David De Gea has given Ole Gunnar Solskjaer yet another injury worry. That's ahead of Manchester United's crucial Premier League game against Liverpool on Sunday. And sport and politics are mixing in Spain. Next weekend's El Clasico could be moved from the Nou Camp to the Bernabeu, with pro-independence protests planned in Catalonia, and the Lionesses have sold out Wembley for their upcoming fixture against Germany. Fantastic to see. And when we're talking of England's sporting brilliance, when we're talking about patriotism, and when we're talking about success, Martin, we've got to talk about the England rugby team. We've got to talk about the Rugby World Cup. Australia coming up bright and early on Saturday morning, 8:15 a.m. Set those alarms. Are we going to do it?
Johnny, earlier you were complaining about 8:15 as if you weren't going to get up and just sort of wake up mid-morning and say, oh, how did we get on?
No.
In your pyjamas, walking down the stairs. Can't be bothered to get up and watch England. 8:15 kickoff, mate. You got to be there. 7:30, sat on the side of the sofa waiting for it to come on. National anthems, up you get. And on your heart, come on England. All the way through, non-stop.
I do that. I just can't go to the pub at 8:15. That's what I was saying.
Well, you don't need to go to the pub to watch England play.
It would be quite nice, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Do you think we're going to beat them?
Well, I think we will.
Plenty of pubs are open, by the way.
Oh,
on Saturday morning,
Stop
especially.
It.
Are
they? Stop it. If you're listening to this,
loads.
Drink responsibly, both before lunchtime and
have to drink at the pub.
All right. You're right, we don't. We're joined on the line by Paul Morgan, who is a rugby writer and communications director for Premiership Rugby. Good evening, Paul. Thanks for joining us. What's your take? Is 8:15 too early?
It's never too early, is it? It's 8 o'clock somewhere in the world. I think that's always my rule. 8 p.m. I mean. No, I'll be there along with it might be an orange juice to start off with, perhaps. But no, you've got to get into the spirit of things, haven't you?
You have indeed. And in terms of the game itself, are you feeling confident?
Yeah, I think England are going to win. Yeah, I think they built up a really good momentum. I think they've got Australia's number. I think they've beaten them, consistently over the last 3-4 years. I think they know how to beat them. I think it'll be a huge shock if Australia are victorious on Saturday.
Would it be a shock? Would it really be a shock?
I think England are big favourites. Yeah, I think they are. I think especially because of the way they performed against them. They've won in Australia. They've beaten them at Twickenham. So I think they feel really confident the way that certainly that, and they seem to be going through this World Cup. Exactly as they want to be. They went through the pool stages, won exactly where they wanted to be. They got their 5 points each time. Everyone's fit. We gather Billy might be back as well. So, it's all feeling good for England at the moment.
Might we be a bit undercooked, though, Paul? Australia have had a couple of tougher games. They're going to be more geared up for that kind of contest, aren't they?
Yeah, there is definitely an element of that. And we go through this in the Premiership sometimes, that you never really quite know with players how long to rest them. Sometimes 1 and 2 weeks can be too much, and there is a lot about the battle-hardened part of it. But I think England had gone through a very, very tough pre-World Cup season. They'd had some good games before that, so I think they'll be okay. And I think effectively 1 week off probably won't affect them too much, and will allow them to get those little knocks and niggles. Guys like Jack Nowell and Billy himself, who could have been 50-50 for last week, now will be absolutely fit and raring to go. So I think on the whole it'll count in their favour.
And would you pick big Billy for this game and risk him, similar to James Anderson for the World Cricket, where he went in and played for the Test matches when he wasn't quite fit?
It's a good parallel there, isn't there? I hadn't really thought of that before, but there is, and all of us watching the Ashes with tears in our eyes were thinking that in the summer, weren't they?
Yeah,
I would pick. I definitely would. I mean, I think for me, you're right to say I think England are hot favourites, but they can easily lose this game. So you don't want to leave all your guns unfired, do you? So I think you do go with Billy. His go forward. I think look. Us talking now, you're in the Australian team, sitting in the dressing room. Who do you want out there? Do you want Mark Wilson or Billy Vunipola? I think we probably rather have Mark Wilson, wouldn't we, even though he's a great player. So I think that for Billy carries that little bit of fear factor for other teams. So I think you definitely go with him. And only he and the squad will know if he's 100% fit. But obviously, if he's not, then that changes it completely.
Yeah, his former Sarries teammate Will Fraser said to us earlier, if you offered him to any of the other teams in the quarterfinals, they'd probably all take him at number 8, which I thought was probably quite a good way of putting it. Even if he's not quite at his best, he does have that fear factor. I wanted to ask you though, Paul, as well about the back row specifically. Do you expect Australia to go with both Pocock and Hooper? Obviously, we'll know this early tomorrow morning, but do you expect them both to play? Because I've read suggestions that maybe Pocock will be on the bench. Do you expect them both to start?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think again, when it comes down to these big games, and let's be realistic, for these players, it's probably one of the biggest games of their career. Certainly, the biggest game they've had in 4 years. Could be the biggest game in a decade for some. You go with that class, don't you? Class will allow. I think they've invested too much time and energy into that combo, and I think they'll go with it. And they know the breakdown's going to be so important that those two working in tandem. We've seen it before. I believe they'll both be there, which is going to provide an absolutely intriguing battle with Curry and Underhill. It's going to be fantastic to watch.
So looking at that more specifically, 4 years ago when they thrashed us in the group stages, Pocock and Hooper absolutely had the better of us at the breakdown. But do you think in Curry and Underhill, inexperienced as they are, we've got two operators who can really compete with two guys as world class as Australia's?
Yeah, I think they do. I mean, I think in that era, running around about 13, 14, 15, England really never had that player that could do what they do, and they've really got under England's skin, and they really wound them up, and I think they've learnt an awful lesson from that. And I do genuinely think a player like Sam Underhill, particularly, was identified, through the years following 16, 17, 18, as someone who could do what they do. So I think Sam's career has been building for this match to do exactly this, because those two are world-class operators. And I think you're right. It's an area England identified where they weren't strong, and they've developed players like him so they can be strong there now.
Ahead of England's clash against Australia, there's been a lot of chat about perhaps too much Aussie influence on this England camp. Of course, we've got an Australian manager in Jones, we've got an Australian attack coach, and now Jones has brought in Australian Rugby League legend Ricky Stewart. Too many Aussies knocking around for you, Paul? What's the point of a Rugby League bloke getting involved?
No, I mean, I think what Eddie's done throughout his career with England and throughout his career with others, he's got his coaching team together. It's all set, and then he adds someone else just in the mix to shake things up a bit. And we saw him using Mark Ella with England a few years ago. He loves doing that. Disruption, that's what he likes. Bring people in. Are you all comfortable this week? Well, you're not anymore, because I got this guy in now who's going to do things you've never seen before. So this is typical Eddie, and don't be surprised to see somebody turning up at semi-final and final week. We haven't seen Johnny Wilkinson emerge yet. I know he's doing his ITV stuff, but don't be, he will do this right the way through, and he loves to keep mixing it up, keeping the players on their toes. And we're in professional sport now, aren't we? And they're all professionals, and I don't think they want to win. They don't want their country to win for certain. So I think they'll be focused on England victories.
Yeah, I don't think it really matters, Johnny, because in the cricket with us winning the World Cup, our manager was from Australia, wasn't he? That Trevor Bayliss. So I don't think it really comes into it, does it? And who cares?
No,
when we beat them on Sunday and then go and smash New Zealand, who's going to care? Well, Eddie's from... Where's Eddie from? He's Japan and Australia, and he's from everywhere.
He certainly is, yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah, no, exactly. No, I agree. I mean, I think you probably, as a lot of fans would want, ideally want it to be from the same country, wouldn't we? But, the world has moved on so much now that it doesn't seem to be, necessarily a prerequisite. And look, Wales are Grand Slam champions, and they've got Kiwi in charge of them as well.
Paul, if you had to predict the 4 semi-finalists for this year's World Cup, who are you going for?
I'm going for England, All Blacks, Wales, South Africa. I think those 4 teams do look strong, the strongest in each of them, and I think that will be. Look, I think as far as we people laugh at rugby. We always talk about the northern and southern hemisphere, but it's a big thing. And in 2015, the southern hemisphere had every team in the semi-finals, 4 teams. So to even get a couple in there would be good. So I think. For me, to if I was nailing my colour to the mast, that's the semi-final I would expect. England, All Blacks, Wales against South Africa, and they would be 2 absolutely titanic battles.
They would indeed. Well, we'll all be watching avidly this weekend, of course, Paul. But just lastly, your day job, of course, is to do with Premiership Rugby, which is getting underway this weekend as well. What effect does it have with the Premiership starting at the same time the World Cup's going on? Does it mean there's going to be more interest, you think, in club rugby among fans back here, or is it going to slightly detract from it? What have we got in store this weekend?
Well, I think, so far so good. I mean, we're starting off with Bristol Bath at Ashton Gate with a sellout crowd. You can't really have more than that. And I mean, even, they're even a crowd that's bigger than the one when they played Manchester United. So I think we're starting off with a colossal game. And I think, it's a high tide floating all boats. It's creating more interest in rugby, and the club game's going to benefit from that. Big crowds again on Saturday, lots of interest, lots of TV coverage. So, we're expecting a blockbuster of a weekend to start, and, hopefully more and more people are getting into rugby, which is good news for everybody.
It is indeed. Thanks for your time, Paul. Great to speak to you. Paul Morgan there, who is a rugby writer and communications officer for Premiership Rugby. We're going to do it.
Are we going to do it?
Are we going to do it?
We certainly are. We've had everyone on our side today. Paul Morgan, Will Fraser early on, and of course the legendary Robbie Hunter, Paul, former New Zealand Rugby League player.
He wasn't on our side.
He was for this weekend.
True.
He hates the Aussies as well. Everyone said we're going to do it. We're definitely going to do it. We'll of course have all the reaction to the England team announcement on Love Sport Breakfast tomorrow with Richard Lee and Patrick Christie's too.
Guy, you can't see Martin Allen's face. He is virtually growling at me.
I'm just looking on my screen back here.
What I'm looking forward to is the coach of Australia, Checker. He sits up in that box and we'll be beating them. And he looks like the Incredible Hulk, getting angrier and angrier, and he sweats, and his top button on his shirt undoes, and then he's wiping his brow, and his team are getting beaten, and it goes right to the end, and little Eddie turns around and smiles at him and says, "Hi, Chucker, how are you, mate? You're out."
Oh, look, mate, it's just a game of rugby. It so happens that I've beaten you 6 times out of 6, England against Australia the last few years, so let's hope there's another one on Saturday, eh?
Yeah, Guy, I think you've got it right.
Who's
and
Guy?
I think
That's
Chucker,
Eddie Jones.
I think Chucker hates him. And he's like this little pit bull Rottweiler Jack Russell round his ankle. Just keep chewing away at Chucker's ankle.
Every time you say Chucker, I think of Chucker Ummana, and then I'm like, why do we have a Labour MP, well, former Labour MP, piling into the World Cup?
Don't worry,
Politician.
Chucker Pupper?
Chucker Ummana.
Who's that?
Wow.
Who does he play for? Arsenal?
We don't have to worry about politicians here on Love Sport, man. Don't you worry about that. But yeah, an absolute blockbuster to look forward to. Let's hope it's 7 out of 7 when England meet Australia on Saturday. A bit of Man United team news for the Liverpool game on Sunday. It's not good news if you're a Man United fan. Stay with us for that.
This is Love Sport.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it, sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Cancer. It can affect anyone. And when it does, Macmillan are right there to support them. From the moment of diagnosis, we offer physical, financial, and emotional support. And it's your donations that make it possible. So we can be on the phone, in hospitals, running support centres, and ready to help people deal with the fallout. We are funded by you, the public. So please give what you can at macmillan.org.uk. Macmillan Cancer Support, right there with you.
There are fewer than 20 days to get ready for Brexit. Find out what you need to do to prepare now at gov.uk/Brexit.
Hi, I'm Dean. I work for a successful shipping company in Suffolk. Ever since I heard about people's success with the spokesmansaid.com, I knew I had to investigate for myself. Every time I need to compare car insurance, home insurance and energy bills, I always contact a spokesmansaid.com. This year alone, I saved over £260 on my car insurance and also £585 on my energy bills. I saved big through a spokesmansaid.com, and you could too.
With a spokesmansaid.com, fighting for you, saving you money.
Whoa! Look how much saturated fat is in these chocolate biscuits. It's surprising how much is in our food and drinks. For us kids, eating too much saturated fat can lead to harmful fat building up inside, which we can't see, increasing the risk of heart disease or stroke when we get older. So be food smart. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app and start making healthier choices today.
I have my own radio station too. It's called Love Trump Radio, the only station 100% fair and 112% factual.
Love Sport.
Well, Guy Watts promised you some bad news for Manchester United, and I'm afraid that's exactly what it is. We're hearing David De Gea will miss that game against Liverpool on Sunday. He could be out for 2 months, and worse yet, there are, of course, these reports that he felt the injury tweak at half-time and decided to play on anyway. Martin, if you were his club manager hearing that, how would you feel?
Well, I'm going to take umbrage with what you said a minute ago, Johnny. I'm winding you back. You said it's bad news for Man United fans that Pogba and De Gea have been ruled out of the game against Liverpool. Now, I've got to be honest with you, 100% honest with you. I do not see that as bad news in any way, shape or form. De Gea has not been on top form, and he's told everybody that he wants to go to Spain and play. He's signed this mega money contract, and he hasn't been playing that well. And then you find out that he had the injury, but he carried on, and then he's been ruled out now for probably 2 months. You're better off having a goalkeeper that wants to play for Man United and can't wait to play on this game on Sunday to prove how good he is. And this Argentinian lad called Romero, get him in, get it on, and everybody in Man United get behind him. And as for the other bloke, Pogba, what's he got, a sore toe, ain't he? Sore toe? What are you talking about? Sore toe? He played with Allegri, I think, at Juventus, that Pogba. So you can see that some bits and pieces that have been coming out in today's newspapers, they might be coming out and saying, well, if we get Allegri, would you be happy to stay here and play for Manchester United? And Pogba's probably gone, yeah, you're right, get him here, because he is a top manager. And with Evra coming in as well, you can see all these bits and pieces happening behind the scenes. And he's not playing because he's got a sore toe. God, blimey.
But regardless of why he is or isn't playing, do you honestly think Manchester United are a better team without their best midfield player?
He's not their best midfield player.
Go on then, who's better?
Jose Mourinho never played him, he made him sub. And then, when Ollie took over, Ollie put him in the team, and he was then brilliant. Then. But what about all the rest of the time for Mourinho? And what about since for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer? He doesn't run back. He doesn't challenge. He slows the game down too much for a midfield player by having too many touches.
In that United midfield, who's better than Paul Pogba?
All of them. Because if you've got a player in your team, like in your team here, who's got a bad attitude, who's negative, who has a bad body language, anyone
Guy, I
is
told
better
you not to
than
snitch
that.
on me.
Anyone.
Told you.
So you can't afford to have people like that in your dressing room. Too many bad apples, and it rumbles through the whole group, and it's a nasty atmosphere. It's a careless attitude, and that is what they've been playing with. Get them out, sell them. Move them on. Get new ones in that want to play for Manchester United. Like the left winger that was playing for Swansea last year, James. Wan-Bissaka loves playing for Man United. These players, you can't have negative people in your football team. So your question is all of them.
Well, when we're talking about the slightly more committed...
What's funny about that, Johnny?
No, nothing. I enjoy your passion, Martin, as I always do. When we're talking about the more committed midfield players, what's funny about that? When we're talking about...
I'm not laughing, Johnny.
Okay, I apologise.
You defending those two midfield players and Pogba just because he's got all those emojis. What is all that about?
Emojis. We can hear from one of the harder working United midfield players, Scott McTominay, who really is a fan of Jose Mourinho. Here he is talking about the role the Portuguese had on his career.
Jose is very special to me. He still keeps in contact with me now and keeps in touch with me after some games and different things like that. So he'll always have a special place in mine and my family's heart.
Scottish international Scott McTominay there, sounding fabulously Scottish. But he does owe Jose Mourinho a huge debt, really. Mourinho plucked him out of relative obscurity, threw him into the Manchester United team, and he has now, credit to him, taken that opportunity and become a Premier League star. Let's be honest, he was only put in that team because Jose was on the wind-up with Paul Pogba. He was saying, I will play this kid instead of you.
Because he's a good athlete. He's 100% committed to the team. He listens and he plays in the team structure how I want it to be put out there. Not how he wants to be put out there. He's 100% committed to the team. I saw the Scotland game against San Marino the other night. And he ran himself into the ground. He must have run miles. And anyone could say, oh, yeah, it's against San Marino. But you can have a bad attitude against them and you can stroll round just hoping to win 1 or 2-0. He was absolutely superb. McGinn got all the credit because he got the 3 goals. He was everywhere on the pitch. And he is a good player going forward for Manchester United. And he fits into the Maguire, Wan-Bissaka, James, probably Rashford, because at the moment he's on the edge as well, not sure which way he's going to turn, and McTominay. So they've got a core group there that could be there. Maybe Romero, if they do keep a couple of clean sheets and win a few games, maybe he may be coming in. And if they've got to sell in January Pogba to get him out, then so be it. Will they back the manager to do it? I doubt it.
When we're talking about McTominay's love for Mourinho, it's important to note that it goes both ways. McTominay said he'll always have a special place in my heart. Mourinho said he'll always be my boy. And suddenly someone was chopping onions in the Love Sports studio. I started getting quite emotional. But have you had any players in your career where there is that mutual, not just respect, but affection, where he recognises the platform you gave him and you recognise what he did for you as a player?
God, yeah, I've got loads of them, Johnny. Loads of them.
Give us one.
Last night, I'm not going to tell you his name. Last night, I had one of my old players took me out, and my wife, he said, treat you out for dinner. And I said, yeah, that'd be fantastic. Where are we going? He took me to this nice place. When I arrived at the club, he was doing okay, but not great. And God bless, me and him just got on like house on fire. In the end, I used to call him my son, and everybody called him like Gaffer's son, because he's just like, he was only young, he wasn't old, but he was like a mini captain, very mature. He had a great attitude. He's been on and played in the Championship. He had a move to a Premier League club lined up that fell through because he failed a medical with a hairline fracture on his back, which was obviously devastating for him because he wanted to play in the Premier League, and so did I want him to play in the Premier League. But no, we sat around last night chit-chatting, talking about all the good times and some of the games, some of the experiences and some of the training that we used to do and some of the banter that we used to have. And for me now, and I do go and watch him play in the Championship, it's fantastic to see somebody that's come from non-league, work their way through, work their way up with hard work, dedication and a real positive attitude to make the very best for the team that you can.
And would you say you've got to the point of genuinely being friends with him?
Oh, God, yeah. If anything happened to him, I think he could ring me. He'd be the first person to ring and say, what do you reckon? I hope. No, you get a proper bond. You get a proper bond with some of your players. There's several others, not all. Let's not kid ourselves. Some of them that probably hate me, which is par for the course. But hopefully, most of the ones I've been in touch with and worked with can say that I've done okay for them.
I've got a lovely image of Jose Mourinho and Scott McTominay sitting in an Italian restaurant together, some mood music playing, and them just swapping stories about 0-0 draws with Bournemouth and
Lady in the
defensive
Tramp
shape and Lady in the Tramp spaghetti. Exactly. What a beautiful image that is.
Tonight is the night. That one. Is that how it goes? Lady in the Tramp?
Quite possibly.
Yeah.
I've
seen that. That's a cartoon, wasn't it?
I've seen it. I haven't seen it recently enough to quote it. It is a classic.
I was thinking more Billy Joel.
Seen that.
No,
yeah, scenes from an Italian restaurant. Very nice.
I know the little scene. And they throw the old lady who's cooking, who's singing in the thing, doing the washing up. She throws a bit of meat out to the dog who's sat outside looking up, and he barks every night for a bit of food.
See, that's Mourinho McTominay.
And then when she's doing the washing. Yeah, no, they'll probably be on the other side with Mourinho having champagne. One of the best managers of all time, who made Pogba sub because he had a bad attitude. Why did he do that?
Martin Mad Dog Allen being a fan of Lady and the Tramp is something I didn't expect to discover today.
Disney film, isn't it?
Classic.
It is.
And great to hear as well that you've got close bonds with your players. That obviously leads to great things off the pitch. You can have a nice dinner and reminisce and be friends. But I think it really helps the player, certainly on the pitch, develop. And you'd have to say that's been the case with a lot of the Liverpool players and Jurgen Klopp.
Well, not only has United's job been made harder on Sunday because of, I think it's been made harder without David De Gea and Paul Pogba, even if Martin here disagrees. But they're not just up against Liverpool, are they, Johnny? They're not just up against the European champions who have won 8 games out of 8. They're up against a Guinness World Record holder.
Martin, I want to get your thoughts on this.
What's that, guy?
Maybe Trent Alexander-Arnold is going to credit Jurgen Klopp with this, but the young Liverpool and England right-back has been entered into the Guinness World Records 2020 for the most English Premier League assists by a defender in a single season. Call me old-fashioned. It's not a world record. It's a Premier League record, which you already hold. Why is he getting this?
It's not Guinness World Record stuff, is it?
Oh, it seems a bit weird.
It is random, isn't
it?
Well,
don't they normally do these awards for goals, assists at the end of the season? How come it's
for last season, though. So we got 12,
season.
Which was the most any defender had ever got. I think Leighton Baines and Andy Hinchcliffe, had 11 assists. And then Trent Alexander-Arnold went and got 12. And it's like, all right, well done. That's very impressive. But the Guinness Book of World Records, that's for men who have fingernails.
And women.
Well, and women, sure, but the person I remember with the world's longest fingernails was a man, and this image sticks in my mind.
Grim.
They
I've got
put the
the
picture
same
of
one.
he had like fingernails, and they were so long that they sort of curled up. They were like a spiral shape. It was absolutely hideous. I can still see it now because I used to get it every Christmas. 2001, 2002.
They were great.
Brilliant.
Just seeing how much longer he'd grown them by.
Yeah, exactly. And every year you just sort of inspect. Oh, there's that next few millimetres. Yeah,
Page 74 it was.
If you want to beat him, what do you do? Because that isn't a record, presumably, where you can catch someone up. You'd have to wait for his wife to tell him off, and he'd finally clip his nails, at which point you could claim the record.
How inconvenient would that be? How impractical would that be?
Getting them on the tube.
Oh, my God.
Picking his nose.
Let me just grab my Oyster card. Give me 4 years.
Would it be worth it? To have one hand, basically.
It's a very... because
you wouldn't be able to make a fist.
Is it just one nail or every nail?
No, it's every nail.
I think it was every nail.
It's a proper web.
But
it's absolutely grim.
if you're going to have one, you might as well have them all. You know what I mean? It still has the effect on your life if you just have one.
You could poke someone in the eye from 6 foot.
You can't put your hands in your pockets, can you? Even if you just got one long fingernail.
There's a couple of other things you can't do as well.
You're quite right. Lots of things you can't do. Look, don't try it at home. But I think it's not right to be in the Guinness Book of World Records for the most assists by a Premier League defender.
No, if he does it with very long fingernails and manages, there's one. If Trent,
longest throw-in with long fingernails.
No, but if Trent had massively long fingernails, what is the rule for a handball when it comes to a fingernail?
It's part of the hand.
Is it though? It's sort of growing off
not part
the
of anywhere
hand.
else, is it?
I don't know, but you're not touching it with your hand.
Come on, let's nail this and move on to something else.
Martin's having none of it. All right, I'll wrap it up for you, Martin, with a simple question.
Hold on. Did you know
if this is
that
about
Wembley
Disney...
Wembley Stadium for the ladies international against Germany has sold out of over 90,000 people to watch the ladies game.
It has.
What a stat that is.
What a stat that is. Just finally, on the Guinness Book of World Records, if you were going to be in it, what would it be for?
I haven't done one, so how can I be in it?
What would you attempt?
I seriously bet no one has ever managed Barnet Football Club more than 5 times. No,
yeah,
seriously.
I'm in it already.
Let's get a petition going. No one could have done it 6 times.
Let's get him in there.
No, I don't know. I don't know what I would go in it for. Crikey. Annoying people.
I think Guy would rival you. Lots to come on Posh Boys on Drive.
This is Love Sport.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it, sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Cancer. It can affect anyone. And when it does, Macmillan are right there to support them. From the moment of diagnosis, we offer physical, financial, and emotional support. And it's your donations that make it possible. So we can be on the phone, in hospitals, running support centres, and ready to help people deal with the fallout. We are funded by you, the public. So please give what you can at macmillan.org.uk. Macmillan Cancer Support, right there with you.
There are fewer than 20 days to get ready for Brexit. Find out what you need to do to prepare now at gov.uk/Brexit.
There are many things a mother can pass on to her baby. Her smile, her eye colour, and her immunity to whooping cough. Whooping cough is a very dangerous illness for young babies, and at the moment it's spreading fast. A simple vaccination during your pregnancy can help to protect your baby in their first weeks. Please speak to your GP, nurse, or healthcare professional and pass on your immunity.
Oh, it's okay. Let's face it, when your kids are ill, you do anything to help them feel better. But remember, antibiotics aren't always needed. You might not realise it, but taking antibiotics when you don't need them puts you and your family at risk of a longer and more severe illness. Help keep your family well. Always take your doctor's advice on antibiotics. Search NHS antibiotics. All better.
This is Love Sport.
You're listening to the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive with me, Johnny Burrow, Guy Watts, and special guest Martin Allen. And Guy has all your latest sporting headlines.
I do, Johnny. Yeah, Bulgarian police have now arrested 6 people for making racist gestures during Monday's Euro 2020 qualifier with England. 9 others are being investigated as well. The match was stopped twice after some of the home supporters directed monkey chants at England's black players in Sofia. La Liga have asked for this month's meeting between Barcelona and Real Madrid to be moved due to protests in Catalonia. The Spanish top flight want the El Clasico match switched to Madrid, with Barcelona then playing at home in March next year. 9 Catalan separatist leaders were jailed on Monday for their part in a failed bid for independence. As Martin was just saying, a record crowd for an England women's game. Remarkable this. Will watch their friendly with Germany next month. Ticket for the match at Wembley have sold out. The National Stadium, of course, has a capacity of 90,000. The previous record for the highest ever attendance for an England women's game was in 2014. That was 45,000. The previous record for any women's game here in the UK was the Olympic final in 2012. That attracted a crowd of 80,000. So this really is an incredible sort of new record that has been set. And Paul Pogba and David De Gea ruled out of that Man United match against Liverpool on Sunday. That is breaking news, of course, in the last half hour or so. Weather-wise, largely dry and clear tonight. It looks like some patchy fog and mist around, though. Chilly as well, especially up in Scotland, with a touch of frost possible. Tomorrow, though, highs of 15 degrees. Showers spreading east throughout the day, with the winds freshening up as well. Showers could be heavy and thundery in places at times, too. The east, though, looks set to remain a little bit dry. That's the latest here for you on Love Sport Drive. Next, talk of a bit of a rift in the Liverpool camp ahead of that big game on Sunday. Don't go anywhere.
Love Sport.
Cancer. It can affect anyone. And when it does, Macmillan are right there to support them. From the moment of diagnosis, we offer physical, financial, and emotional support. And it's your donations that make it possible. So we can be on the phone, in hospitals, running support centres, and ready to help people deal with the fallout. We are funded by you, the public. So please give what you can at macmillan.org.uk. Macmillan Cancer Support, right there with you.
This is Love Sport.
Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive. We're talking Liverpool and we're talking rifts in the camp. That is the suggestion in today's Daily Mail. Specifically between two of the star men, Martin, Mane and Salah. They shared the Golden Boot last season, 22 goals, shared it with Arsenal's Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. But the first signs of trouble in paradise came back in August during a thumping 3-0 win at Burnley. Mo Salah failed to pass across the goal to give Mane a tap-in. Mane was later substituted and went off ranting and raving at the Egyptian. Speaking after that game, he dumped it all down and said, listen, we're good mates. I was a bit frustrated, but it doesn't mean anything. But if we look at the stats this season, there are suggestions that they don't get on the pitch and possibly they don't get on off it either. Mo Salah has not created a single chance for Mane all season. That is despite them playing in that interchangeable front three in one of the most free-scoring sides I've ever seen in the Premier League. Mane, meanwhile, has created 4 chances for Salah, but the Egyptian has failed to convert any of them. They've got 9 goals between them, and yet none of that is coming together. Are they both individually gunning for that Golden Boot, and could it be hurting Liverpool as a result?
Well, I think they probably are, Johnny, heading for the Golden Boot. But I think if we look at the current Premier League, as we discuss this on Posh Boys at tea time, you'll see that Liverpool are well ahead of everybody else. So it clearly, Johnny, is not having an effect on their form, is it?
Well,
how many points are they ahead?
8.
Have they lost yet?
No.
And they're 8 ahead?
They are.
And they're 8 ahead?
Yes.
And have they lost it yet?
No.
No.
But
I don't think it's really affecting their form.
Well, I'm not sure that necessarily follows. The fact that
what's going to happen then?
They can be performing brilliantly despite there being a problem here. I find it very, very odd that the 2 most attacking players, the 2 furthest forward in the team, can score 9 goals
Firmino
between them.
Plays up the middle, doesn't he?
Yeah, but
they play on the wides.
He drops deep behind them with them overlapping. How they can be scoring that many, both vying for that Golden Boot, and not setting each other up at all, could be a coincidence. But for me, looks a bit fishy.
I'm not sure that Jurgen is losing sleep over that, Johnny. he's probably looking forward to the Liverpool game and carrying on his training patterns that he's had into place. We've just heard about Trent Alexander. Is that his name?
Trent Alexander-Arnold.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Alexander-Arnold, the right back, who's created a record assists.
A world
and
record.
Robertson, the left back, who's bombing on, making fantastic overlaps at pace on both sides with their fullbacks. They've got a system where the two forward, the wide attacking forwards that you mentioned, can come inside for the fullbacks to go on the outside. It's a fantastic setup. I very much doubt if Jurgen's going home thinking, they don't pass to each other today.
Where's he from?
Germany.
Right.
I don't think so.
I thought he was from Devon.
And we're 8 points clear, so it's not affecting their form.
Okay, no, but this is a very interesting one. So for you as a manager, if you had, let's say for the sake of argument, you had 2-star attacking players, both brilliant on the pitch, the performances are good, the results are good, but they hate each other. Does that not bother you at all?
Not really, no. When you say hate each other, there's lots of players that don't get on and don't quite hit it off. Don't text each other or don't ring each other. But footballers, it's a little bit different. You can be when you're in the same dressing room as your teammates. It's a bit different to when you're in the cafeteria at the training ground or on a team coach or when you're flying like they do now. It's a little bit different bond. He'll have his group of players within that Liverpool squad that they're really close to. They've done fantastically well after winning the Champions League. After winning those big competitions, you can afterwards have a little bit of a dip because there's that feeling of seen it and done it and we've achieved everything. But they seem to have come back. They seem to have come back with a real urgency. And Oxlade-Chamberlain now being fit is another big addition. Matip is back fit now. Gomez is back fit now. They seem to have got even stronger to me.
I had always assumed that whilst being big mates isn't crucial, the very best football teams all got on. In your experiences in your career of managing drastically successful teams like Gillingham when you won the division, is it not the case that everyone's mates?
Well, what do you define as mates? There's teammates and friends. That's different.
I'm talking friends.
Friends. Yeah, they were probably friends. We're all still in touch now on what's that WhatsApp group? WhatsApp. Yeah, it's called Champions, by the way.
Is it?
Yeah,
strong.
Yeah. Pardon?
I said strong.
What does that mean? Strong.
Impressive.
Yeah, strong. Yeah, strong. Yeah, very strong. No, I don't think everybody liked each other. I'm sure everyone didn't like me. Crikey, I liked all them. But it wasn't a really big deal. We had a really good bond. The same with the group at Barnet when we won that league. Not everyone's going to be happy because they never are. With one of those successful teams at Manchester United, I don't think Terry Sheringham got on with Andy Cole. I think there was a little bit of a problem between those two. But once it came to going out and playing, they kind of, I think, just got on with it. I don't think they ever punched each other or done anything nasty to each other.
For you as a manager, do you care at all about whether your players like you? We've talked on the show about the lovely occasions where you can end up becoming really close friends with a former player. But if they're not keen on you as a person, does that bother you?
Well, you have to do something drastically wrong to make that happen, wouldn't you? Let's be honest. And football management has changed. Managing people, getting on well with people, looking after your people, looking after your players, and making sure you know their families and how their lives are going away from the football club. It can be tough. Tuesdays, Saturdays, regular basis, losing games, not playing well. You can fall out with people. But on the whole, it's part of the skill. And one of the things I learnt from a few comments made about Ancelotti at Chelsea, that he was the best man manager and best communicator, never fell out with anybody, got on really good with everybody and made everybody feel special, made everybody feel welcome. And if he left people out, he always spoke to them and he explained it to try to get the very best out of everybody and not let anybody down.
Well, let's hear from Frank Lampard talking about Carlo Ancelotti and the Chelsea managers who had the biggest influence on him.
More than tactics or technical stuff, it was more how good could I be and did I have the mindset to move up levels. And Carlo Ancelotti, I always found, in terms of how personable a manager could be, their relationship with you one-on-one, to try and get the best out of you, always found a bit special.
He's a very charming man, isn't he, Carlo? He's got that kind of suave Italian vibe about him. He's a confident bloke who you would take to, I think.
I agree. I liked him even though I hated Chelsea and didn't like them being successful. He's the only Chelsea manager I think I've really warmed to in any way in the last sort of 15 years or so.
Super Frank. Do you not? I really like him.
I don't dislike Frank, but he was a massive rival to Man United for the entire time I've supported Man United.
I get that, but I like Frank Lampard, the manager, infinitely more than I liked Frank Lampard, the player.
I see where you're coming from, Johnny. I do like what he's doing, but I'm yet to personally warm to the man, if you see what I mean. Maybe if he is successful enough for long enough, maybe if he's England manager and does well, I'll change my vibe. By the way, have you ever seen Carlo Ancelotti and Chris Silverwood, the New England cricket coach, in the same room? I don't think anyone
they're ringers, aren't they?
They are ringers, and as someone's pointed out, Silverwood's 44, Ancelotti's 60. Must have had a paper on Chris Silverwood, and he's not doing too favourably in that comparison. Although Carlo Ancelotti, not the worst looking man, except for that slightly odd eyebrow that.
No, I disagree with that completely. That eyebrow is magical. If that's very good, Guy, for those of you, if you're not on YouTube, get on there, Love Sport Radio. You can see Guy Watts doing a Cadbury-style eyebrow dance.
They've run out of puff now.
If I had an eyebrow like Carlo Ancelotti's, I would never let it droop.
You'd ensure it. I don't think he can, Johnny. I think that's the point.
No, I would finish every question. I'd just raise it right up to the hairline. What do you think, Martin?
I'm trying to work out what the hell you're doing. He's sitting on the opposite side of this table with his headphones on, his glasses on, speaking into this big mic, trying to flick his eyebrow all over the place. What are you talking about? What are you doing?
I'm being Carlo.
Can you move your eyebrows, Martin?
Why are you doing that?
Because Carlo Ancelotti's got the eyebrow that moves all the time when he talks.
The magic eyebrow.
Does he?
He does.
Yeah, you must come off it.
Is that what you're practicing now, Johnny?
That is rubbish.
I wish you could see this.
I hope you are watching on YouTube.
I wish you could see this. This is funny.
Oh my God!
I thought you was asking me out with that little eye look. You know what I mean?
That's for after the show, Martin. In terms of what we've got coming up, we're going to be telling you what delights Love Sport Radio have for you after 7, and we might talk a bit of England as well if you're really lucky. So stay tuned.
Giving your team a voice. Love Sport Radio.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it, sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Hi, my name's Bob. I'm a retired civil servant from Durham. I used the advice that a spokesman said gave me to haggle with Sky to reduce my monthly payments from £86 per month to £43 per month, which was a saving of £774 over the 18-month contract. A nice little result, if I say so myself, but it was only due to a spokesman said on his brilliant advice that I was able to do a deal for the new contract.
With a spokesmansaid.com, fighting for you, saving you money.
Cancer. It can affect anyone. And when it does, Macmillan are right there to support them. From the moment of diagnosis, we offer physical, financial, and emotional support. And it's your donations that make it possible. So we can be on the phone, in hospitals, running support centres, and ready to help people deal with the fallout. We are funded by you, the public. So please give what you can at macmillan.org.uk. Macmillan Cancer Support, right there with you.
Before you set off on a long journey, remember to check your vehicle. Are your tyres correctly inflated? And are the treads deep enough? Have you got enough fuel? Is your oil level right? Checking your vehicle doesn't take long, but can prevent a breakdown or accident, and save you money. So, before you set off on a long journey, check your tyres, fuel, and oil. Highways England, connecting the country.
I know my IQ is fantastic. I took a test and the results came back negative.
Love sport.
Charlie Hawkins joins us in the studio, and he's a very popular man because he's noticed my new glasses. Guy Watts and Martin Allen have been in a small box with me for 3 hours and 47 minutes. Neither of them's clocked it, but Charlie, you have, so you are very, very welcome. And you've also got some cracking shows coming up for us after 7, starting with Martin Allen's favourite, the Newcastle Fan Show.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one this week, isn't it? The Newcastle Fan Show. No game, of course, international break, but we're delighted because we're going to be joined by Chris Waugh from The Athletic, talking all the latest what's going on there. And he's got some very interesting developments with Steve Bruce, Almiron. Obviously, he got sent off for Paraguay in the week, so we're going to be talking all about that and looking towards their game on the weekend against Chelsea. Tricky tie. They're starting to turn it on there, aren't they? And it is at Stamford Bridge, but Newcastle have beat Man United. They've beat Spurs. So why not?
That's not a big scoop beating Man United, is it? What are you talking about?
No, the scoop was, Martin, if you was listening, we've got Chris Waugh from The Athletic talking about Steve Bruce and Almiron because he's not playing well for Newcastle and maybe what's going on there. Is there something more behind the scenes?
Is he a good player, Almiron?
Yes, for me he is.
Is he?
Yeah, I really rate him. I watched him in the MLS and I know there's a big golfing class, the MLS and Premier League. I'm not saying that they're close, but I just feel like he was tearing that league apart, and I feel like there is a little bit of time where it's going to take him a while to adapt to the league. Obviously, the physicality of the Premier League and the MLS is huge.
And different environment.
The language, obviously, he's struggling with the language as well. And he's being played out of position. And this is what we're going to talk to Chris Waugh about because they play him really far out on the left and on the wing at Newcastle. And he wants to be played through the middle. He wants to be played centrally. And that's where they'll get the best out of him, I believe.
Right, well, that Maximilian, he's a good player, isn't he? Oh, blimey.
Maximilian.
What's his name?
Yeah.
Saint-Maximin.
Yeah, there you go.
Saint-Maximin.
Do you see him in training score an absolute filter? If he could do that actually on the pitch, it would be class.
Under the lights.
Under the lights.
He's exciting, though, isn't he, Charlie? When you see him play, he is exciting because he drives at real pace. You all right?
I am.
He's going to ask a question.
Because I want to say, talking of exciting, we got the Leyton Orient Fan Show from 8.
Oh, new manager.
We got a new gaffer, Charlie.
New manager.
Spill the beans.
I feel like I was in the know a little bit on this one.
Ooh, how come?
Because obviously I'm allowed, I get all excited, I'm allowed to be part of the Leyton Orient WhatsApp group that are on the show, and they were texting on the weekend, and obviously there was rumours circulating around the stadium saying that the new man was in charge, the odds were slashed. I was really slow off the mark, couldn't get a bet on, but he is the new man in charge and it's been announced today. Don't obviously encourage people to bet.
No, of course. Are they feeling good about this appointment, Mr. Fletcher?
Well, it's only just broke now, so there's differing opinions already, as there always are when any new manager is appointed, and people, we have the in and out camp already, and I think, look, he hasn't even played a game yet, hasn't even took a training session. Let's see what happens. It's always going to be really difficult because obviously what happened with Justin Edinburgh over the summer, so terrible, sad time for Orient fans, and they're always going to do that thing, aren't they, where they compare the Justin to any new manager they have, and that will be a struggle. But hopefully Cole Fletcher, but they're on a run where the last 3 games since they announced that Ross would be stepping down, they're unbeaten. It's amazing how they've turned that form around.
It is indeed. From 9 o'clock, you've got the Fulham Fan Show. What is the feeling there?
Well, the feeling there is that the international break may come at the wrong time. I'm beaten in 6 for Fulham, and Scott Parker said himself, he went, the international break no good for us. We're just starting to find ourselves, firing on all cylinders, going through the gears. We feel like we're ready to run now. And in the Championship, there's no easy fixtures. There's no gimmies, is there? But they play Stoke on the weekend, and Stoke are bottom of the table. Let's be honest about it. But they won their last game. They've had the international break. Nathan Jones, he's on the hot seat. But there could be an upset on the cards. I'm excited to talk about this one.
Yeah, well, Stoke have got some good players, haven't they?
Well, this is it, Martin. They say, you can never judge a squad on paper, but one of the things they say about Stoke is they have one of the strongest squads in the Championship. Obviously not playing that way. They're at the bottom. But there's almost this Premier League hangover. They've never really fanned themselves since they've been relegated, have they?
No, kind of a dark cloud that lingers, and it just kind of takes a little bit of time and patience from the owners with Nathan to allow him just to make his mark and take it forward for the fans as well.
Yeah, and this is it. Well, we got appointed at the start of the new year, and I think they felt like, right, we gave him the 6 month of finding the chemistry, finding his rhythm, finding his feet, shall we say, and they really wanted to hit the ground running in August, and it has obviously not gone that way. But he's bought himself a little bit of time. We heard about he had 3 games to save his job. I hate that when they talk about how many games a manager has got, because it change in an instant, change in 90 minutes. Well, he got that win, and now it's Fulham on the weekend.
Exciting one to look forward to. The Wolves Fan Show coming up from 10. What's the feeling there?
Well, the feeling there is they was actually pleased at the international break because obviously they started their season so early. They started all the way back in July. They're on this European adventure now. But they got that win against Man City. They got that win against Besiktas. 93rd minute winner for Wolves. And then they went and beat City on the weekend. An away game in Turkey. Then they went away to Man City. Yeah, incredible. You won't get a much harder double-header away games, will you? Besiktas in Turkey, then Man City, the champions away. But they've had a break and they're ready to go now. And I think that all this talk, it kind of frustrated the Wolves fans that their season started earlier. They were going to do a Burnley. They was nothing in the sort. You know, we just need to find ourselves, hit rhythm a little bit, and we're back on track.
I know it was a while back, but a quick word on that willy-bolly touch and finish in Turkey. Oh my word, you're meant to be a powerhouse mountain of a centre-half, and he just turned into Sergio Aguero. Unbelievable quality.
It was.
What?
He turned into Sergio Aguero. Where'd you get that comparison
as
from?
someone, and I know
Aguero's 5'6". He's 6'4".
Exactly.
Maybe them new glasses ain't working now.
To be fair, you would have to go quite a long way, if I might.
Talking about he went into.
No, to be fair to JB, it was an absolute beautiful finish when it was sublime.
It's the touch as much as the finish.
Touch of class, touch of elegance. But what I do like, there was a 1,000 Wolves fan who travelled there that night, and the noise they made, at City. But for them fans, you know, they're going on this journey, and I think they're loving being part of it. Not just they're there to make up the numbers. Of course, they want to go as far as they can, but you just saw it in their faces. A 93rd minute winner in football is good any game, but when you're away in Europe, absolutely brilliant.
And getting Sergio Aguero into the team, what a signing that is. From 10:30.
It's been a long 4 hours, our kid, haven't we?
Martin, you've enjoyed it. From 10:30, we've got the Old Firm fan show, a changing of the guard.
Changing of the guard, the title race is well and truly on. And I've got to say, I'm absolutely loving it because we give 15 minutes to Rangers, 15 minutes to Celtic. One says one thing, the other replies and says completely the different. It's absolutely fantastic. They predict their results on the weekend and it just goes obviously the other way. You know, Rangers lost in Europe, Celtic won in Europe, Rangers won on the weekend in the league, Celtic lost. That title race, because Celtic are going for this Big Ten, aren't they? They haven't even won 9 yet. It's huge. If Rangers, let's not forget, a few years ago, playing in the lowest division, come back and do this under Gerrard, there will be absolute scenes.
He will be loved forever.
And Charlie, Rangers are now top of the league at the moment, aren't they? Is that the first time in how long that they've been top?
I don't know the exact date, but it is the first time they've been top.
5 years?
Longer
years,
than that.
Yeah, longer than years. And it was only a couple of games ago. They were 3 points behind. Now they're a point in front. You know, there's been a real point swing there for Rangers. And weirdly, I just feel like, not just because they're a point in front or, you know, they're at the top of the table for the first time in ages, and it is so early on in the season, I really feel like the tide and the momentum is with Rangers.
Charlie, it sounds like a great few shows. I'll be tuning in to confirm Newcastle from 7, Orient from 8, with that new manager confirmed, Fulham in from 9, Wolves from 10, and the Old Firm fan show at 10:30. Martin Allen. We've spent another 4 hours in each other's company, joined, of course, by the inimitable Guy Watts. I have to say, it's flown by.
Yes, what does inimitable mean?
Inimitable, cannot be imitated, cannot be replaced, except no substitute.
Wow, I'll think about that on my way home.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Guy, as well. And thank you for listening at home. Stay with Love Sport for the Newcastle fan show from 7 o'clock. We are going nowhere. You shouldn't either. And the Posh Boys are back tomorrow from 3 o'clock.
This is Love Sport.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive